Today, the dam broke. I mean, news just started pouring out like crazy. The Supreme Court has ruled the president does have immunity in certain regards, particularly pertaining to his constitutional duties, his official acts, but no immunity for unofficial acts. Steve Bannon has reported to prison. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has announced she will file articles of impeachment against the Supreme Court for ruling that co-equal branches of government are just that. And there's a bunch of other stories pertaining to inflation, as well as Joe Biden. Bill O'Reilly is reporting that Joe Biden is already bowing out of the race. They just haven't yet figured out how to announce or spin it. I don't know if that's completely true, but it is what he's reporting. Tucker Carlson has reported that Obama, behind the scenes, is arguing Biden cannot win and is working against him. It is a wild day. Epstein grand jury files have been released. I haven't even had time to read through any of this stuff. So we've got a heck of a show for you. Before we get started, my friends, make sure you head over to mypillow.com. Shout out to Mike Lindell. You know him, you love him. MyPillow sponsoring the show tonight. All of you out there, you know Mike Lindell. MyPillow, they don't have the support of the big box stores anymore, so they need our support, but they also have pretty great products. Mike Lindell, of course, no stranger to cancel culture. They're coming here to bring all the savings they can to you, the $25 extravaganza. When Mike started MyPillow, it was a problem solution, one product company. That's right. You know the pillows. Since then, with the help of his dedicated employees, they now have hundreds of products, some you may not even know about. To get the word out, they're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, and these are awesome, by the way, $25. Their 6-pack towels, just 6-pack towel sets, $25. Brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. For the first time ever, premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size and loft level, even king size, just $25. The amazing offer won't last long. Head over to mypillow.com. Promo code TIM, by the way. And that's also 800-925-9096 to order. Special shout out to Mike Lindell. He's a good dude, and they've been absolutely unfair to him. We're honored to be able to give a shout out to MyPillow. Also, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because tonight's members-only uncensored show will be based AF, and we'd like to see you there. So again, timcast.com, click join us, and you'll get access to our Discord server where you can submit questions and call in to join the show yourselves, and we'd love to hear from you. Also, considering it's election season, and, there are many legal entities and political entities that don't like us, and we likely will face some challenges, as we already have this year. So we can use your support. We've got a live show coming up at the RNC Thursday, July 18th. And if you'd like to be there and sit in live in the audience to watch the show right there in front of all of us, go to timcast.com, click that banner, buy your tickets now. They're going quick. Special event. And Mike Lindell himself will be there. So very excited. Smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with your friends. We got a couple of guests. We got several guests joining us tonight. Our first guest, Joshua Lisec. How's it going, man?
Pretty dandy, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Who are you? What do you do?
I am a ghostwriter. They call me the based ghostwriter. I do a lot of books for entrepreneurs, politicians, and great grandmas who had a good story and they want to make sure their kids know it. But recently, I've been coming out and speaking my mind, and my latest work is with Jack Posobiec, also here. Unhumans, the book, co-authored, and forward is by Stephen K. Bannon, who is a political prisoner, which is a topic of the book, in fact.
Indeed. Yeah, Jack's here.
Look, I got the shirt right here, folks. Free Bannon. Steve Bannon did nothing wrong. Steve Bannon earlier today was marched in with his head held high to FCI Danbury in Connecticut, where he is currently held as a political prisoner. Peter Navarro is in FCI Miami as a political prisoner. And we know that all of the J6 freedom fighters are currently being imprisoned in the gulag in D.C. However, we also know that the Supreme Court just came down on this obstruction ruling, which could potentially impact a lot of those cases, maybe even knock some time off of them. And I certainly hope they do. But look, yeah, we've got the new book out. You know, the book's coming out. We mentioned it the last time I was here, Tim. I've also got a surprise for Tim later in the show. We're not going to bring it up right now because there's too much going on. But look, I expected to be here today, Tim, and I expected that we'd be having a lot of fun talking about the country going down the tubes. I didn't realize it would come at a time where they're actually locking up people that we know and people that we're friends with that are going on. But of course, the entire left is saying, oh, no, Trump is the one who might do things like that. And I'm sure we'll get into it.
Absolutely. Libby's hanging out.
I'm here. I'm hanging out. I'm trying to do like a really quick read on these Epstein files. I'm with the Post Millennial, and I work, of course, with Jack Posobiec at Human Events.
Also, Biden just spoke, and you're also trying to do work
vaguely
here.
Trying to.
This is
do
what
work.
she gets for being the editor of important publications. She has to work all the time.
You actually just reminded me. I do have a writer working on something. I told him I'd look at it. So
There you go. Hannah Claire's hanging out.
I'm Hannah Claire Bremla. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. I'm happy to be here. Happy Monday, everybody. Hi, Serge.
Yo, let's get started.
Here's the big breaking story from the day. Justices give presidents immunity for official acts, further delaying Trump's trial. Now, Joe Biden just addressed the nation in a 5-minute speech where he said that presidents are effectively kings now. And that's insane, not true. There's this ridiculous talking point coming out from the dissenting justices. Sotomayor, for instance, said that the president could order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival and they'd be immune. But I'm pretty sure literally everyone would believe that is not an official act constitutionally held by the president, but an act by a rogue president. And also she mentioned, what if he orders the military to stage a coup? Also not an official act. Now, that being said, there could be an overlap there. And that's why we have impeachment. So you can impeach and convict the president and then criminally charge him. But I'll give you the basics. Held by the Supreme Court in only a few sentences, the constitutionally demanded duties of the president are, of course, immune. They ask him to do it. Official duties as president, which is in the periphery of constitutional obligations, of course, there is presumed immunity, though there are some potentials for overlap. Unofficial acts enjoy no such immunity. I do not understand in what reality these liberal justices think a president should not be immune as it pertains to his official duties. That is absolutely nuts. You're asking someone to run for office, to run this country, and then saying you will criminally prosecute them for doing what the Constitution tells them to do, and they're complaining about it. So what this did was it kicked back the J6 trial to the lower courts to determine whether or not what Trump did on January 6th was actually an official act, or was it an unofficial act, which is exactly what many pundits predicted, because the lower courts pushed this thing through way too quickly. What say you, panel?
Well,
you go.
I'll go with this. This is what happens, and Joshua and I have been talking about this a lot, because when in the course of writing on humans, we realized that the problem with the two camps in the U.S. now, the two majority camps in the political parties, or the political spectrum, if you will, the right and the left, is that the right is hyper-focused on principles. The left is hyper-focused on power. So for the right, they'll say, oh, we have the best principles. We are so good. And they have all these philosophical debates about those principles. And libertarians come up and say, what about the non-aggression principle at all? And then the left says, well, what can we get away with? What can we do? What do these words say? And so if you have no discernment, then the Constitution is nothing but words on a piece of paper, meaning that high crimes and misdemeanors, as you just referenced, Tim, so the Constitution says impeachable for high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, what does that mean? High crimes and misdemeanors could be anything. We decide that does. So to the founders, obviously that had a set meaning, and you could read the Federalist Papers, and you might do some learning about the language of the time and the rhetoric of the time, and you could discern what high crimes and misdemeanors meant. And you could, say, well, this is how I would apply that. And then you would go in. But the left doesn't care about that. The left only cares about power. They have no principles. Whereas the right has principles, yet they have no power. And so if you have principles without power, that is psychopathy. If you have power without principles, that's tyranny. This is the situation we're in. So to them, the plain text reading is all there is, because they have no conception of a higher field of justice. They have no conception of a higher field of understanding what the law should be. What is a high crime? It doesn't matter. Whatever we can get away with matters.
So what you're saying is, if we asked, say, Sotomayor, if you did not eat breakfast yesterday, how would you have felt?
She would say, I eat breakfast every day, Tim. I wouldn't know. And I'm pretty sure she does. Now, by the way,
the best insult, by the way.
Sonia Sotomayor, for everything that I've heard, and I will say this, that she apparently is actually very nice and very polite in real life, and that apparently has good relationships with Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas, has even spoken out against harassment of the conservative justices in a way that you really don't hear from the left. So I'm not gonna come down here on any of those things, but at the same time, she just clearly isn't at the caliber that we need our Supreme Court justices to be. be. And Mike Davis was on the show earlier today on Human Events, and he said, this is kind of like listening to your drunken wine aunt, go on rants on Facebook and have that be a Supreme Court opinion.
Yeah, and there was a certain level of hysteria during arguments when we heard them before. I mean, everyone was saying, Ketanji Brown Jackson had that line about, well, the Oval Office would become the nest of corruption in America or whatever it was. There was always sort of a very clear partisan panic where the liberal justices felt like this was only able to be used in a way that was bad. And, we had the conservative justices saying these are decisions that will impact the long-term future of the country. I think in terms of the progressive or the leftist reaction to this, the only thing they would have settled for is if the Supreme Court came out and said, Donald Trump's the worst person on earth, and we will personally get the handcuffs and let you guys lock him up. I mean, I think they would have attacked the Supreme Court for any kind of compromise, and this obviously was sort of their worst case scenario.
So what you're saying, if this was Joe Biden as president, they would have the opposite opinion.
Absolutely.
Of course, because it doesn't matter. It only matters that it's Trump.
I think you're exactly right.
I'd like to cite.
So whom?
So I need to cite Sotomayor here real quick so you can understand. Actually, you know what I want to do? The first thing I want to do is just show you Roberts. I believe it was Roberts who wrote the majority opinion, correct? Held.
Yes.
Under our constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential powers entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. And he is entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts. There is no immunity for unofficial acts. I'm then going to do a quick search for immune, and cite Sotomayor, who says, orders the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes a military coup to hold onto power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune. Immune, immune, immune. Very articulate.
This mirrors her comments during oral arguments.
Right. The point I'm trying to bring up here is showing you that Sotomayor acts like a feminist blogger and not a highest justice in the land laying down a dissenting opinion.
Well, who do you think her staff is, right? Like, they don't write the first drafts on their own. It's not like it's just the Supreme Court just saying, I'm going to shut myself in my library and type this out. No, their staff is hugely influential, and I'm sure that she has gone out of her way to encourage, to offer positions to progressive future lawyers of America.
And you look at each of these words, these are incendiary words meant to escalate tension and the FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right. We have hold on to power, a bribe, and these are hypotheticals, right? And the goal is that if you can have someone imagine a hypothetical, then it's as if it's real in their own mind. And if you stack up a bunch of them, then you have a terror overload, and then you can issue a call to action. This is effective leftist persuasion.
Especially when you're dealing with people who can't understand conditional hypotheticals. So
Precisely.
If you're dealing with a person and you say to them, this was the joke we made in the beginning of the show, but we'll get serious with it. If you did not eat breakfast yesterday, how would you have felt? People with low IQs, and this is a meme, I don't know the degree to which it's true. The idea is that people with low IQs can't understand the concept. They'll respond with, but I did eat breakfast yesterday. I don't know, but what if you didn't? And they'd say, I don't know, but I did eat breakfast yesterday. Whereas average people would be like, if I didn't eat breakfast, I guess hungry? Some people might go, I usually don't eat breakfast anyway. I probably feel the same. All that matters is that you understand the concept of a what if scenario. Now, you take someone who can't grasp that.
But it's also a what if scenario and then the application of that scenario to yourself. So the condition being not just like, what if astronauts in space encounter aliens and blah, 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 because anyone can kind of do that. But it's also how would you actually, so a theory of mind, in this case, just of yourself. Not even a question, by the way, theory of mind of someone else. How do you think Tim Pool would have felt if Tim Pool hadn't had breakfast yesterday? That's completely...
So what we get here is, for people who are not smart enough to understand this, orders Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune, organizes a military coup, immune. For people who can't understand conditional hypotheticals, they're thinking, he's going to do that. He's doing this. And that's what they're trying to...
Well, and what's even crazier, though...
And it works on MSNBC and CNN.
Of course.
Look at their anchors. That's what they're saying.
They were saying, could you imagine? And I think it was that guy, Keith Gifford or Kyle Gifford, whoever. And he goes, could you imagine if the president set up, I don't know, a sham investigation and a special counsel and had them start rounding up people and investigating political political rivals and their allies and putting them in jail. I'm like, Steve Bannon went to jail this morning. You marched him into the gulag. Peter Navarro is currently in jail. You just convicted Donald Trump.
No one's above the law.
No one's above the law. No one's above the law. No one's above the law. And
There's
again,
tons of people above the law.
So, and this is where it comes down to whose law, whose democracy.
Well, that goes back to the Fisher case,
Not
too.
yours.
I mean, you had this situation where with Fisher, you had this law that was created to prevent accounting fraud being used against January 6th defendants. And, that really shows like...
I disagree with the ruling in that.
You disagree with that ruling?
I disagree with the ruling in the Fisher
Why?
case.
Really?
Because they should have struck down 1512C2 in entirety.
Oh, instead of saying it doesn't apply here.
Because
should have
they
just gotten rid of it.
punted, because Roberts kind of punted on this and said, oh, well, it doesn't apply in this case because it was completely overbroad, because it stated
interesting.
Any proceeding, government proceeding that is obstructed, this becomes now. And they came in and said, well, it really only applies in criminal rulings and Enron, and that's what it was written by, which was where it was basically drafted by Weissman, who ran the Enron case to begin with and the Arthur Anderson case, and then after that used the same obstruction charge. And Will Chamberlain wrote this whole piece for Human Events. I'm thinking Jack Smith, Will Smith.
Yeah.
Wrote this whole piece on Human Events. Talking about how Weissman was trying to apply 1512C2 to President Trump for his conduct in the Mueller probe. Now we know this was a joke, but it's very clear to me that Weissman and his ilk, these types of people, you can watch them on MSNBC, by the way. That's the brain trust. Don't watch CNN. Watch MSNBC because you'll know what they're doing. That's what Steve Bannon always taught me. Go watch MSNBC, and he just has it on 24/7 in the war room. And you will see what they're planning to do, because they kind of, there's only like 3 or 4 people with brain cells on the left, and they're all on MSNBC, and it's Weissman and Elias and these guys, and Norm Eisen is another one of them. And we're not saying they're good people, right? They're incredibly malicious. They're abjectly malicious, but they will tell you what they're about to do. And so their idea was to construct a law that we could essentially find anyone guilty of for anything at any time. That was 1512C2, and it should have been struck down. And by the way, there's a bunch of legal reporting and legal scholarship that backs this up, saying, yeah, this is ridiculous. Even when it was passed, they said this is completely overbroad, and statutes have been struck down on constitutional grounds over overbroadness and vagueness in the past.
Let's jump to the story from Newsweek. Speaking of people who can't understand conditional hypotheticals, Supreme Court impeachment plan released by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Rep. AOC announced plans to introduce articles of impeachment against U.S. Supreme Court justices on Monday, after the court ruled that presidents have immunity for official actions. The court on Monday ruled that former presidents have absolute immunity for official acts, but none for private acts. Okay, slow down there, Newsweek. Absolute immunity only applies to constitutional duties. Official acts have the presumption of immunity, meaning there's overlap, they may not in some circumstances, and unofficial acts enjoy no immunity. Now, Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, wrote early Monday afternoon that she would introduce articles of impeachment against the court in a post on X. The Supreme Court has become consumed by a corruption crisis beyond its control. Today's ruling represents an assault on American democracy. It is up to Congress to defend our nation from this authoritarian capture. I intend on filing articles of impeachment upon our return.
I feel like she didn't read the ruling.
Of course
feel
not.
like
It's just buzzwords she got from MSNBC.
I feel like she is part of the party that always says, Donald Trump, won't you accept the results of the elections with no question and not conduct any investigations? Like, so are you saying we are or not allowed to question?
I have a question for them on that. Do you accept the results of the Democrat primary? Did the Democrats accept the results of their own primary? Because I seem to remember Joe Biden winning the Democrat primary, and I don't see anyone asking the question as to whether or not they will continue to accept the results of their own primary. I think every single one
you always say it's not hierarchy. It's not
hypocrisy. It's hierarchy.
Did you guys see the Snyder ruling from the Supreme Court? Did you guys read that one?
Which one was that?
That was the former mayor who received an illegal gratuity and was criminally charged.
I read about this.
We didn't get into that one.
All right, so let me help. I'll tell you what. This is why I can't stand MSNBC. Okay. So I get a message from a family member, and they're like, "Did you see this? The Supreme Court legalized bribery." And I was like,
going already.
I'm immediately thinking, okay, well, it's probably not true, but
based.
but let's hear.
Come on, we all know that Tim Pool's bribing the people of Martinsburg to get his skate parks and steal from the good skaters.
That is not confirmed. So anyway, so I'm having this conversation where it's like, yeah, this guy basically gives a contract to a truck company. And then a couple of years later, he needs money. So, he goes and they pay him off. And then he gets charged for it because it's basically a kickback. But the Supreme Court said it was a gratuity. He got a tip. So it's allowed. And so, I end up pulling up the Supreme Court ruling. And of course, it says literally the opposite. Well, then this weekend I was hanging out at Charlestown Races playing some poker. And I mean, no disrespect to these people, my family member or this next guy.
Here it comes, folks. He's going to admit it.
Which one?
Tim's going to admit everything. He's going to spill the beans.
Oh,
Keep
right.
going,
Well,
Tim. Please continue.
So there's a guy sitting next to me. And as he wins a poker hand, he says, I'm going to need this money the next time I get pulled over because the Supreme Court just legalized bribery. And I'm like, did MSNBC put this narrative out by taking... Here's the real story. Gratuities are illegal if the intention is set before an official act to influence the official act. Bribery is illegal if something of value is given before an official act. There are quite literally two different laws on the books, and most people don't know that gratuity is a law on the books. If someone goes to a public official and says, I'm going to give you X in exchange for this ruling, a bribe. If someone goes to them and says, you rule in my favor and I'll give you X, a gratuity, they're both illegal. The gist of the case, as I read it, was they charged a guy for gratuity using a bribery statute. And the Supreme Court was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. If you do that, you're going to give someone the opportunity for a defense in that this was a gratuity, not a bribe, and the bribery charge gets thrown out. They were basically saying, make sure when you charge people for illegal gratuity, it is the right law and statute. Otherwise, they'll raise a defense because the payment came afterwards and you charge with the wrong law. That gets turned into the Supreme Court legalizes bribery because MSNBC and the likes of these liberal outlets are trying to trick you into thinking the court is bad or evil or wrong. And that's what AOC is using as a predicate for, we have to impeach them, they're all corrupt.
And this is what I always say when people get into arguments or like Twitter back and forth or Facebook arguments, Facebook debates with people is at some point you have to realize that you're just arguing with whatever the last thing they heard on TV was. Or in Sotomayor's case, whatever the last thing she heard on like a feminist podcast was.
Right.
That's what you're arguing with. You're not arguing with someone who's actually taking the time, like Tim just did, to open up the case and read it out or even get like basic bullet points to figure this out. Because, and here's the dirty little secret is that you have people walking around every day and voting with this fried mental model who have been propagandized through chronic propaganda and occasionally acute propaganda their entire lives.
One of the reasons why it sticks and it's so, because if you question them, it's like you're attacking them personally. It's their personal identity. If you, like really, if you just question just a little bit, offer a couple of facts. It's like
it's deeply threatening to them.
Yeah, I like that, by the way, that test you just did. That what's it called? The Scott Anderson. Really? So Tim, this is the test. You just add that when someone says something crazy, the Supreme Court just legalized bribery. All you have to do is start back and say, really? Did they really do that?
Did you think when you spoke just now?
Yeah. That sounds a little.
Now
a little far fetched.
I will address, people in the chat saying Tim is a gambling problem because I was playing poker. Oh, bro, I am so up in poker. It's ridiculous. I'm going to be checking out the...
I don't have a gambling problem. I always win.
Gambling has a 10-pull problem.
That's true.
That's right.
But poker's not gambling. And that's why I always win. And I'll be checking out the World Series later.
I think one of the things is that criticism of the Supreme Court is about to get extremely acute, and it's about to be everywhere because this is the new way to get progressives to the polls, right? You guys hate Joe Biden.
Enough anymore.
Abortion's not enough. Joe Biden is doing the wrong thing in Palestine, Israel, but you guys don't realize he could have the power to nominate new Supreme Court justices, and we cannot let Trump have that, right? It's sort of a testament to the grasping of straws nature of the Biden campaign at this point. They know their candidate's not particularly viable. They know that no one is really moved by the issues. They have been trying to say these will change the election. These are the big issues because, they said it was abortion, and actually it's the economy and immigration. So they need it to be hysteria about the court, and they're going to use this to capitalize on it. That's why Biden, speaking from the White House, was like, look, this could disrupt everything. I've got to go now. I'm going to stop speaking. It's the next phase of trying to keep the Democrats in power. And unfortunately, the court is going to be the target of that.
And all language is exaggerated. I pulled out a transcript of just a few of the words that Biden had said. I noticed in the caption, we notice what I like to call bad verbs, right? It's where you insert adverbs where they don't belong in order to amplify a false interpretation.
Credibly accused.
Yes. So with today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. referring to no one is above the law. So fundamentally, so in order to parse out manipulative messaging like this from the left, you just swap out the adverb for the word not, and then you get the version of, and you get the correct version of reality.
So what is it?
Or that or not. So he said fundamentally changed, virtually no limits, fundamentally new principle. So he says there are virtually no limits. There are not no limits.
That's correct.
If you if you simply take the adverb, and journalists do this all
Credibly
the
accused,
time.
not credibly accused.
Yes, or just even
Not accused.
Not accused. Yeah, not accused.
at all. Now, one of the reasons why this sort of, let's say, it's not exactly low intelligence. It's like a low self-awareness type language. It's king. It's assault. This sort of language. I do a lot of hypnosis work with my clients, and in the manuscripts, I like to joke that a book is a long-form self-hypnosis script. And one of the things that you learn in hypnosis is that the subconscious mind that we all have operates. That's where our beliefs, our identity, our values all live. Ages up to about 5 years old and stops. If you have ever had a conversation with a 5-year-old, I have many, they are tactile little creatures, multisensory. How do things look, taste, feel? It's vivid language. And so when we are scrolling, when we're consuming, we put ourselves into a trance-like state. We effectively become like 5-year-olds. And so the most effective persuaders are speaking to 5-year-olds. Like, become like a king. A 5-year-old can understand that. It's an assault. 5-year-old can understand that. It's an attack, even if none of that stuff is true. Whereas, look at John Roberts' opinion, a 5-year-old can't understand that whatsoever.
Right.
So what's happening?
That's a mistake.
So what's happening is people will sometimes say, "Oh, the left is hypnotizing masses." That is literally that is happening. That is what is happening. The left is hypnotizing the masses, planting these words in there, these beliefs that they associate with their identity. So when you say, no, Trump didn't say that about the Charlottesville white nationalists, it's an affront to them. They recoil.
Well, it's like, did you see the thing Kamala Harris put out this morning saying Trump's going to take office and he's going to illegalize abortion across the whole country? And meanwhile, we all watched the debate on Thursday where he said absolutely that he was not going to do that.
And Elon blew her up over it.
Elon blew her up. We covered that today. And I was just like, you are just lying. This is just an actual complete lie.
They keep pushing the very fine people hoax.
Yes, and it's been
Snopes debunked it after 7 years.
Yes, that was crazy. And if you watch the tape, if you watch the briefing, and Trump actually gave briefings. He actually went down to the press briefing room and spoke to reporters. And Biden can't even take questions at all ever.
But his campaign has tripled down on
And
Trump spent
was
the whole
very
time
clear,
lying.
right? And Trump was very clear. He always told you exactly what he was thinking. He would joke around with the press. I mean, he's still doing it.
From page 19 of Unhumans, feelings don't care about facts. The left understands that. The right does not. So
Well, when Ben Shapiro had that tweet, "Facts don't care about your feelings," which got like 1 million retweets, I and many others immediately tweeted, "What you don't understand is that feelings don't care about your facts."
That's true.
And that, I believe, it's equally as true. The left operates on an inverse spectrum as to what the right is doing.
because feelings are what drive action. They move action. Despite the fact that the left has effectively become a biological denial machine, a factory, they understand biology, at least the way that humans think and operate. And so if you can apply consumer psychology to political messaging, you can select, regardless of the facts, if you can just make an accusation, then if you can get your people to feel this way about a certain character, just repeat it over and over and over, and you associate that feeling with that person, then you think, you see Trump, and you immediately have innumerable bad feelings that are completely dissociated with facts.
And what we end up seeing from the debate is they say, oh, Biden may have had a cold, but Trump's a liar. And it's just like, look, dude, right?
It's not an equivocation.
But we all expect them to say what the lie is, because if I'm talking to, Libby or Joshua or Jack or Hannah Claire or Serge, and they say Biden was lying the whole time, I'd say, oh, what did he lie about? And he'd be like, he was talking about the very fine people hoax that Trump never did that.
Thing,
and I'd go, I'd say, oh wow, yeah, that was a
liar. You're the sucker.
And what the left does is they say he was lying about everything. And if you ask, they'll be like, why are you defending Trump? Because they don't actually have an answer as to what Trump was lying about.
And this gets back to what Josh was saying, though, is that you're not arguing with the specific principle of he said a lie, and there we are going to now have a debate about the lie. You are arguing with an identity. I identify as a truth teller. Trump is a liar. How dare you defend a liar? One who's also, by the way, a convicted felon, someone who's been held liable for rape, and an insurrectionist and everything else.
But, like, at this point, I said this about the Krasensteins because I think it was Brian. And for those that don't know who they are, they're liberal personalities on X. He posted this.
Those lovable scamps.
Yeah, he posted this thing where it's like Biden, like old, and like has cold or whatever, and it's like Trump, 94 convictions, blah blah. And I'm just like, dude, no one actually believes that you think these things. Like, we're at the point where if you are actively watching the news, there is no reality by which you are going, oh yeah, well, Joe Biden was great. Like, even Biden supporters are in panic mode saying he's got to go.
So this is the big threat that the debate night posed. And yes, the initial question was Biden is clearly unfit for office. Biden perhaps is unfit for office currently. Jill Biden is currently in charge. And Tim, you remember, I came on here years ago talking about how Jill was running the White House and how Kamala hated her, and they kept giving Kamala these failed jobs, and Jill was going to the G7. I came on and said this, like people were like, oh, Posobiec is what he was talking about. I said this in real time. But the secondary issue, and this is the real issue that the media was freaking out. They didn't care about Joe Biden. Oh, he pulled the wool over our eyes. No, they already knew. The problem is the normies just found out for the first time that the media has been lying to them every single day. And suddenly it's like, wait, we got to get these people back because they just saw the truth. Many of these people, because the debates get coverage in a way that both sides watch, in a way that both sides will never watch any other show. And so suddenly millions of people just were presented with the truth for the first time. And guess what, boys and girls? The truth showed that the right-wing crazy people and the cheap fakes were actually telling the truth. And that might get them to start asking uncomfortable questions about what else the media has been lying.
Yeah,
well,
the
it did.
Democrats believe their own propaganda. So now we have this problem where the propaganda is not to convert right-wingers, it's to keep everybody in line. And when you're exposed to the reality that Joe Biden completely failed on the debate stage, you have to confront the reality that this truth that they have presented to you is falling apart around you.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to my dad the next morning, and we were both saying that it was, really sad to see the president look like that, to say, like, this is the person who is supposedly running the country. And my dad said something interesting. He's not super invested in politics, and he said, I didn't know Biden was that far gone. And I think that that's true. Like Jack was saying, I think that that's true for a lot of people who maybe the last time they saw Biden was the State of the Union address, perhaps. And that's the last time they paid attention. Nobody paid attention to his midday rally the next day, And so I think that that's really a big problem. And now there is a concern about if the Democrats are saying that Biden shouldn't run for re-election, then they should probably invoke the 25th now. Because if he's not fit for office, he's in November, he's not fit for office right now.
Have you guys seen this video that Alex Jones put out? It's got 15 million views. I'm assuming many of you did. I'm going to play it. There's no real sound behind it, but this is after the debate. As it's concluding, this is important.
No,
Trump casually walking away from the podium, making his way towards the curtain to go backstage. It's rather uneventful. The camera then pans over back to Biden, and I don't know if it was a frame jump or whatever that was, but here's Jill and Joe. Jill's holding his hand as Biden can't bend his legs to take a single step down.
Oh my goodness.
In order to move down, he can't move his hips. Look, you see his hands are...
Looks like Mr. Burns.
No. Yes. But notice his hands are like this. His hands are cornholio, and he's making these weird bent finger. Dude is gone.
So I was down in Austin with Alex on Friday, and I hosted the show with him down there, and trying to take it off air completely. And he played this video about 97 times during the show. He's like, Jack, play the video again. Guys, play the video. And it was every single going to break and coming back and like, the video. And so I've been seeing it in my nightmares. And what's crazy though, that it reminds me of the Hillary Clinton falling out video from 9/11 in 2016 that Zdenek Garza gets. And it's not so much the video itself. That's layer one. Layer two, What's the end of that video? Jake Tapper and Dana Bash
Shaking his hand.
are just shaking his hand as if nothing just happened. They don't seem to react in any way. They're not surprised. They're not shocked, because deep down, every single one of them know it. They know that he's been like this. And you can see the Financial Times reporting from the actual G7 of a lot of the world leaders saying that Joe Biden didn't seem like he was there, that he wasn't able to focus. He didn't even show up for like the gala dinner because the time change shifted on him, or the times when he fell asleep when he was in these meetings with Netanyahu, et cetera, et cetera.
Or in Maui.
Or when he's in Maui, he's half asleep. And so they all know that Joe is like this, and it didn't faze them at all. And neither did his performance issues during the debate faze Jake Tapper or Dana Bash even a little bit, because they all knew that's exactly what he's
What
like.
is this bias? The video clip actually ends with Joe Biden squatting on D-Day. And my position on this is there's a decent probability that Joe Biden suffers from fecal incontinence. This is not meant to be crass. This is an elderly man. The rate is, I think, 25 to 30% of men over the age of 80 suffer from this. That's why they sell diapers.
Yeah.
So when this scenario happens, we all watch it, and he's doing this weird squatting thing like he's having an issue. And we say, there's a possibility he just kind of
Showed that to my
kids.
kids. I showed that to my kids, and they keep asking for it.
But
and they know exactly what it is.
Here's the issue. The media's been lying for so long. Cheap fake. Oh, these videos aren't real. Oh, they're lying, manipulating you. I hope now regular people, having watched that debate, can understand why we as reasonable people entertained the probability that Joe Biden made a boom boom on stage during D-Day, at the ceremony. Not that we know he did, but that the probability exists, and we are concerned about that.
Well, there was, even during the 2020 election, there was a moment when Lady Gaga was campaigning with Joe Biden, and she was wearing like 1,000,000-inch heels, really tall. And she was walking around with him, and he was having trouble walking. And she was like, "Oh, no, you got it. You got it. It's okay. You got it." And he was stumbling along as she's gracefully gliding along.
In like
her
skyscraper heels.
Skyscraper heels.
I mean, this is the same thing when he...
And I remember seeing that, and I was like, that's kind of disturbing. Like, she looks like she's leading her elderly grandpa along at the home.
But this is what we would expect.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we would expect in a situation where every institution in the country, except for one, by the way, there's one institution that does actually have a little bit of fairness left. And we've all talked about it a number of times right now. What is it, Libby?
Which was that?
The one institution that is not completely controlled by the left right now.
Well, it's the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court,
That's
exactly.
the only one, yeah.
And that is why they've targeted the Supreme Court so much. And so you will hear them claim that they are oppressed. You will hear them claim that they are the underdog, that they are the downtrodden masses of the world, when in fact they are the ones trying to import millions and millions of masses from around the world. They are the ones who control all these organizations.
300,000 Haitians just got an extension of their temporary amnesty.
I was in this
Did
argument
anybody catch
with
this?
libertarians
This is
about that.
when Biden gave
was
his
a great
speech at
debate.
7:45. He accidentally read the teleprompter again. I don't know if any of us caught that. So let's
Sotomayor's dissent today.
try it again.
I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote.
I remember.
I think that's. I think
There was
that's.
a
I think
verse
that's-
where he read like
wait.
pause. Remember that?
Wait, listen to the way. Can you play that again though? Because there's another part that I caught. The way he says the word official acts. Listen.
Visual acts?
Here's what she
Yeah,
said. She
you
said,
caught it too.
every use of official power
Visual.
A visual
is now
power.
a king above the law.
Visual power.
With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote.
So they're trying to. This is what they did with Libby. This is what they always used to do with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG. So she became famous for her dissenting opinions, these blistering opinions. I dissent, and then eventually, they take control of the court and they're able to get all these things passed. But they're trying to turn Sotomayor into the new Ruth Bader G. And the problem is, of course, is that as amoral and horrific, I think a lot of her decisions were, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was like several standard deviations more horsepower between the ears than Sotomayor. Which, by the way, another piece of that is that Sotomayor is not she's near the older end of the court. And there is a real chance that the next president, whoever that may be, could make their replacement. Also, by the way, Clarence Thomas is currently the oldest member of the court, but
He's also the best.
I'm telling you, like, the Republic is currently predicated on Clarence Thomas's health care. Whatever we need to give that guy, I want to make sure his RV I'm talking armor
better be
plating, stacked missile launchers.
Healthcare. Did Biden get a tan? Is he like trying to look more like
Well, he's
Trump?
been hanging out at Camp David,
Right, but I mean, I thought he had
He's
a
been
cold.
wandering. Maybe he fell asleep outside.
Right? Maybe it's that. Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. Like, this is what I was talking about before. The Supreme Court is going to be the new rallying point for at least the next couple of weeks. It might shift again, but I think this will be the new thing that they try to get progressive voters to the polls. We know you don't like Biden. We know he did terribly. We know you're upset with his foreign policy. But the fate of the Supreme Court lies in the hands of the next United States president. It cannot be Donald Trump. Because of the fear of losing any kind of liberal presence on the court or any kind of progressive moves, especially with any pending abortion cases. And I think that is one of the reasons that this desperation to keep Joe Biden a somewhat sympathetic character is going to remain present for a long time. I mean,
isn't that what Hearst said about him, his sympathetic old man?
Right. When
Do you think we're going to get that audio?
The thing is, I don't think we'll get it. But I also think that, like, all of the months of conservatives being like, do you remember when he tripped up the stairs? That was rough. Do you remember when he collapsed or tripped and fell down at Air Force graduation? It went from being like conservatives so mean and disrespectful to being like, oh, wait, maybe they were right about something. Maybe
He's our Boris Yeltsin. He is our Boris Yeltsin. So Boris Yeltsin was sort of the post-Soviet Clinton-appointed, basically Clinton-packed president of Russia, who wasn't really a president at all. And he gets in there and, people see his antics on television, public drunkenness, and he allowed Western powers and the first oligarch class in Russia to just completely run roughshod, signing over, peace. It was almost as bad as the early days of the Bolshevik regime in some senses, because they would take something like the vast oil and gas resources of Siberia and sign it over to a guy for like $1 million, like completely insane, for the cost of a Tim Pool skate park. And you've got all of Siberian oil and gas.
I don't know if people know what the cost of a Tim Pool skate park is.
Well, I think it's about $1 million, right?
About $1 million.
Yeah, it's about $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when this insanity and the Russian life expectancy started going down, public drunkenness was through the roof. All of that sowed the conditions that led to the rise of Putin, who came in and said, no, we're not going to be doing this anymore. And people know that he did not decide to turn down the route of, freedom and democracy and institute a constitution. No, it was going to be this direct top-down power model, probably more likened to the Romanovs and the dynasty before him, that and the oligarchs were all given the choice. They were given the choice of, are you going to agree with the new power structure, or will you be thrown in jail? And if you didn't go along with it, you were thrown in jail. And this is so I guess I point this out to say that after a leader like this, a system can be ripe for massive political change. And I think that's what the left is, in a sense, because they are so, and Joshua, I used this line earlier on my show when we were pre-taping. You said, we talk about follow the money, and you say the left follows the power. Mm-hmm. They are so attuned to power. They sense a power shift is in the wind. And Joshua, I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, because they have this natural attunement to power, whereas the right would rather be addicted to rules. As someone in the chat was just saying, the right is totally addicted to rules, but doesn't seem to be able to understand which way the winds of power are blowing.
Yes, if you game theory it, one side will win no matter what. That our dedication is to win regardless, no matter what it takes. And the other side says, I just want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm, that's
and
us.
that's the
we
left.
Just want to be left alone.
And that's the right, and that's everyone. Well, who's going to be the winner takes all? Every single time. And so it's an asymmetric interest, drive, urge for power over others. And I would posit that we can consult hypnosis for one of the explanations for this. When people project outwards their desires, what they want to see, what they want more of, it's usually due to a massive hole in the soul, so to speak, of what it is that they don't have. So when someone has a drive for power it is usually because they have no power over their own lives, their own social circle, their own family.
How did you get into hypnosis?
I want to jump to this. We had a big story. Big breaking news that came up just earlier in the hour. Trump is moving to overturn Manhattan's
Let's
conviction,
go.
citing immunity decision. Former President Donald J. Trump took the action hours after U.S. Supreme Court ruling granted him immunity for official acts committed in office. Now, right off the bat, I think the Democrats may have made a mistake by arguing that Trump was doing this to cover up something related to the election.
Yep.
Because they have turned it into a political maneuver instead of business fraud or whatever they may have actually have claimed it was.
And when was the last check cut?
As he was president.
As he was president.
And they argued it was over the election,
Yep.
which turns it into a political action, which Trump will likely argue was campaign related to his efforts to be president.
An official act of an official candidate for the presidency, which, by the way, is what they claimed was at least one of the three potential predicate crimes of the underlying predicate crimes, which should then turn it into a felony. Now, the question is, will the appeals court bring this up? I don't know. However, what it might do is throw sand into the gears of the sentencing, because he is currently sentenced or scheduled to be sentenced on July 11th. That means, by the way, Trump should appoint his VP right now,
I agree
because
with
we
that.
might actually need him or her before the convention.
Hopefully.
Because if he's sentenced, then he might not even be able to stand for the convention. So he's sentenced the 11th, convention is the 14th.
This is the important breakdown. I do not believe, and I think it's reasonable to say, that the criminal conviction in New York is largely not an official act as president. However, because Trump was president when part of this happened, the New York Times reports, his lawyers are likely to argue that prosecutors built their case partly on evidence from his time in the White House. And under the Supreme Court's new ruling, prosecutors not only may not charge a president for any official acts, but also cannot cite evidence involving official acts to bolster other accusations.
Wow.
Trump may
Fruit of the poison tree.
absolutely.
right.
He's going to argue this absolutely needs to be thrown out, at the very least retried, excluding evidence from any of his official acts as president, which they cited heavily in this case. They were arguing he was influencing the election. He stole it.
yeah.
While he was president, the work he was doing with his lawyers now are going to completely fall under official acts, and that guts a large portion of their case. I think Trump wins this. I mean, I don't know that he does. I'm saying, hearing that right now, I think it's fair to say, based on the Supreme Court's decision, that he would need a retrial at the very least.
You might need to retry.
Yeah.
You might, and there is no chance that gets retried before the election.
No way.
No way at this level.
Well, and
By the way, you know what? I'm surprised. It's just Manhattan, right? Because there's also Fulton County.
Here's a question.
Because the Fulton County one, Trump even has a better, I would say, argument in the Fulton County one.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he was the president investigating
check out what
the
was going on with
execution
the-
of an election.
But here's
and so
if
the
he-
Manhattan one clearly has grounds.
Yep.
The Fulton County one more than certainly has grounds. These cases need to be retried.
If he's gonna, if that goes through and he is awarded a retrial, does that change anything about the sentencing? Or does it mean he's sentenced and then they would?
He may get an
perhaps-
injunction.
So he would need to he would need to file an emergency injunction regarding the sentencing while this broader appeal based on the Supreme Court ruling goes forward. This
Yeah.
is, by the way, Steve Bannon, for example. So Bannon's people get confused because there's multiple appeal tracks. So his emergency injunction was denied by the Supreme Court. However, his overall appeal, which is based on executive privilege, the same, by the way, I would tell you, executive privilege that Merrick Garland is currently using to refuse subpoenas, that Merrick Garland is currently using to hold up the Robert Hur tapes. Although there's actually some interesting reporting out there that Merrick Garland is not the one holding up the Hur tapes, that it's actually the White House.
Well, yeah, that's because they invoked executive privilege.
No, but what I'm saying is that Garland doesn't actually have a problem with handing it over. It's the White House political side and Jill Biden that doesn't want it turned over, which is just so perfect.
Well, that's what he said. He
Right.
said it's executive privilege and he can't do it.
Right. But I'm saying that Garland personally
sure,
wouldn't have
yeah,
a problem with it.
yeah.
And so the issue then being, of course, that it shows more of Joe Biden looking like Joe Biden. So point being, though, is that Bannon claimed executive privilege and has produced a letter from President Trump invoking executive privilege. Why? Because because the January 6th committee wanted to ask Steve Bannon about his conversations with Donald Trump on January 5th and I believe in the morning of January 6th. So here's the question. Donald Trump was the president of the United States on January 6th, which he brought up at the debate, by the way. And so if he was the president, he can invoke executive privilege over his own conversations. And so for him to do so, and then them go to Steve Bannon, who, yes, of course, he was not an employee of the executive branch at the time, but that doesn't matter because the privilege is not Bannon's, the privilege is the president's.
Yep.
And so this creates a constitutional issue based on separation of powers because the January 6th committee, illegitimate, was still a legislative function, not the executive function. That's a case. He's got a Supreme Court case. So the problem is, since that's on emergency track, it's probably not going to come up.
They should have said no prison for Ben until this is answered.
Obviously.
It was pathetic that they punted it and said,
The problem that he ran into is that Navarro tried that while Navarro was currently in. And so even though Bannon won his first appeal to stay out, when the decision had already been made for Navarro, it became harder for the judge to stand by that because there was already precedent then.
And Navarro gets out at the end of the month, right?
Navarro gets out during the RNC. And from what I'm told by sources close to Peter Navarro is that he may already have a plane ticket to Milwaukee.
Oh, nice.
we're going to be there. We got a live show on the 18th. Your tickets at timcast.com because I don't know how many are left.
I was joking I want Navarro to come right onto the War Room set with his orange jumpsuit on and then like tear it off Hulk Hogan style.
Be wearing like a
Get another. I'll get him another one. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll do it live. And it's just, and then they should let him walk on the main stage of the RNC and just do it there. That we have political prisoners in this country, and we can sit up here and give these flowery speeches. But Navarro is a political prisoner. He just got out. Steve Bannon, current political prisoner. Jay Sixers, political prisoners. This is what we're fighting for. This isn't about some like, oh, Donald Trump and he's got the best hair and red ties and no. It's
not the golf swing.
The question I suppose is how will this immunity issue affect Bannon and Navarro or any of these cases moving forward?
Yeah, because Trump said that he had executive privilege, which would be an official act, wouldn't it?
Well, the immunity is for the president,
right?
But I suppose, actually, I don't even think the immunity thing probably matters. I think Jack summed it up pretty well. This is a question for the Supreme Court as to the extent of presidential.
Well, and Tim, here's what it does. Here's what it also does too is that it kicks it. So it created this test, and you walked through the test earlier about the 3 stages of this. So core constitutional duties, official acts, unofficial acts. Sotomayor, I don't think understands the difference between the first 2 categories there.
I don't think.
Yeah.
But the question then becomes not a question for the Supreme Court. This test must then be applied at the trial court and then at the appeals, so the circuit level.
That's why they bounced it back.
And so it's not that they bounced it back, it's that they sent the test down to the trial court and said, by the way, for anyone who decides to prosecute any president, that this is the test you must apply in any of these cases. And so that is going to sends the whole, in the military would say, it sends the whole thing to the right now, because now you've got to restart the entire process at the trial court. Now, Tanya Chutkan, I mean, she's super biased. I can't imagine she would argue that the J6 speech was an official act, but she's going to have a huge problem on her hands trying to explain whether or not she believes that Trump communicating with his own Department of Justice officials is not a core constitutional act and for which he has absolute immunity, because Jeffrey Clark was an acting attorney general level or I believe acting assistant attorney general level. That is part of the executive branch. That is a direct constitutional agency of the president. There's no question that the president should have absolute immunity for those conversations. Or, by the way, conversations about removing Bill Barr, because guess what? When you're the president, you get to do it.
Yeah, you do.
And you know who else does? Nobody.
That's wild. It's a wild situation.
It's a mic drop for her.
Well, it's like the plenary power of the pardon. So plenary pardon power is interesting because it's completely absolute. So no one has a check over presidential pardon. That, by the way, includes the president himself. So if the president signs a pardon and then is like, you know what? Actually, I take it back. I take it back. He was going to give me money. He didn't give me a check. You were talking about the gratuity thing earlier. So if the president signs a pardon, I give Tim Pool a pardon. I say, but Tim, you're $1 million for the next campaign, right? Just give me one skate park for the next campaign. And this is going to be a recurring bit, folks, if you haven't figured that out already.
I think a lot of people don't know what it's about.
But I'm building to something. You'll see. But you never give it to me. And I say, well, I revoke your pardon. President doesn't even have the power to revoke his own pardon. And by the way, there's nothing in the Constitution as currently written to overturn. So the Supreme Court can't overturn a pardon. Congress can't overturn a pardon. It is a plenary absolute power. That's why a lot of people have hypothesized that upon leaving the presidency the first time around, that President Trump could have potentially signed what's called a pocket pardon. And that means a pardon for himself on everything that he did while he was president. And if he did so, then anything at the federal court would be completely thrown out because he had the ability.
Sam sign it and file it, or what?
Maybe he could have. I mean, it's one of those things.
Could have, but nobody knows about it.
Well,
But like a tight circle, like a tight circle note.
But whenever these things are filed, there's a list of them. You can look up the list of executive actions.
Yeah, it's public record, right?
Yeah, so he would have had to have filed it. Otherwise, if he did it now, they just argue. Even if he did it then, but then hit it, they just be like, "You've muted that now. It doesn't count."
And he can produce it. But think about it though, because it would create a constitutional question of what process. But that again,
like the secret will
what
in an Agatha Christie
process?
novel.
What process is over the constitutional power of the pardon? There's no process. There's no executive process. This was the same issue with the classified documents, by the way. It's the president's documents. He is executive classification authority. He's the OCA. Nothing is above him.
Let's jump to this story. We got this tweet from Bill O'Reilly. He said, "Here's a Biden update from BillO'Reilly.com headquarters. The decision has been made that the president will quit the campaign. 2 reasons. Democrat internal polling says he cannot recover from the debate, and fundraising is drying up. So it's over for Joe, but the White House doesn't yet know how or when to make the announcement. Stay close." I don't know how I feel about this. I think I need more confirmation than just BillO'Reilly.com. We do have this tweet from Tucker, which I trust a bit more. No disrespect to Bill O'Reilly. But he says, from an unusually good source, Obama's tweet supporting Joe Biden was disingenuous. In private, Obama is telling people Biden can't win, and he is therefore in favor of an open convention. Obama will not say whom he supports, nor as of yesterday afternoon had he met personally with Biden to deliver the message. Relations between the Obamas and the Bidens have never been warm. At times they've been hostile, but recently they've deteriorated further, mostly due to Jill Biden. So, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what I think. He says they are circling, particularly around Gretchen Whitmer. I wonder if this is all planned.
Gretchen.
It's all planned.
Awful.
The reason why we've had the issue with Ohio and Biden being on the ballot, the reason why the convention was after the due date was because they needed time to allow Biden to sink so they could justify an open convention, but that put them at odds with Ohio.
Do you think this is why they scheduled the early debate and did away with the Presidential Commission on Debate?
Yes.
A lot of people were saying it was an audition.
So that was something that I hadn't given, and I'll just say that I hadn't given that much credence to beforehand. But then as about halfway through the debate, I said, no, okay, this was right.
I don't think it was an audition because Nick Kristof had that pre-write article on the New York Times saying after watching that debate performance, Biden should drop out.
And he wrote it before the debate.
Well, what we do know is the title, Joe Biden should drop out, was made on the 25th, 2 days before the debate. So we don't know exactly what his argument was because he could have altered the text after the fact.
Sure.
Maybe the first article didn't mention the debate. Maybe it was saying this debate's going to go miserably. He should drop out now. And they held it until after the debate just in case. Either way, he pre-wrote Joe Biden should drop out before the debate happened, published it after the debate, citing the debate. I think back in November, I was saying Biden will not be the nominee. I was like, I am almost like dead sure they're not going to have him be the nominee. I still don't know for sure, but it's looking like that's the case. We didn't know exactly how they'd get him out. By March, everyone was saying it was too late. Now it's looking like it's going to be an open convention. And Biden's going to have to say, my failing health or something.
So
Raskin said over the weekend, maybe there's conversations about if Biden wants to continue, but I'll tell you this, he will definitely be the keynote speaker at our convention.
The keynote speaker.
You want to be like,
I don't think
speaker. You don't know what his big issue is here, buddy. Like,
right, because he can't actually.
So here's what we reported. I'll just go back to what we reported in real time, 2021, 2022. There was a huge conversation and a huge split in the Democrat Party that lines up almost identically to what Tucker is saying now. And Tucker and I haven't shared sources on this, but I've heard from the Democrat side, and anyone who's been in D.C. long enough knows that it's the world's biggest little town, and you always run into people, Libby, you know this, that you run into people from the other side, you have friends or who have friends that are on the other side, that kind of thing. And so what we always heard was that they didn't want Joe Biden to run for all of these issues. But Joe Biden refused. And that Jill Biden specifically, who's had the pants on the entire time here, the entire
saw her Vogue
time.
cover.
You saw the Vogue cover. The body's not even warm yet, Jill. Body's not even warm yet, and she's out there. And then Kamala Harris, so they've got the competing virginal white covers, Rolling Stone and Vogue at the same time. You think that's all happening by accident? No, this is the shade war that I was reporting in real time has now broken into full-on open civil war. Day one
It was really open
of my
from
show.
the beginning. I remember Jen Psaki being like, "Oh, we don't know what Biden's going to do. He hasn't said anything." Jen Psaki, the first White House press secretary, was saying, "We don't know what's going to happen." You know, he had somewhat promised to be a one-term president, but then you would get messaging from the Biden family like, no, of course we're going to.
And it was always the family. It was always the family holding the line. There it was Jill Biden, and I remember when she was at UPenn and her buddies with Amy Gutman, who was the president, and all the galas, and Joe Biden was walking around like her arm candy, and she is Jersey Jill, right? Jersey Jill is totally in love with the trappings of power. She was the one, by the way, who we reported at the time. She demanded that Joe Biden stick to the withdrawal date in Afghanistan. She's the one, by the way, go look, and Jackie Heinrich from Fox had the story about Jill Biden talking about our decision about when to shoot down the Chinese spy balloon.
Right.
Our decision to wait until it had already wafted across the continental United States and left the Atlantic seaboard, then we would shoot it down. Our decision. What do you mean our decision? I remember voting for Jill Biden. I don't remember voting for Joe Biden either, by the way.
Look, she thinks she's running the country, and her plan is there just for fun.
She is
In this
running
case,
the
it's true, right?
country.
But
It's
the
like
other
an
part was she
Eleanor
was
Roosevelt thing.
Yeah,
Sure,
or Edith Wilson.
The thing is, she is front and center in the Vogue weddings cover with Naomi, who just got married, right? Like, there is not just the
She
desire
was the
for
one
political
with
power.
Hunter Biden in Delaware. At
It's
the
not just the desire for political power. It's also the personal prestige that she is thriving off of. I'm sure she did not like to be in Michelle Obama's shadow for 8 years, right? This is her time to be first lady.
Exactly.
And if called upon to make all the executive decisions because Joe needs her, then she's willing to do that.
And I'll even throw something else out there. So last week I interviewed London Roberts. So Hunter Biden's
That was
We talked to her last week.
sad.
too,
I
on
know you guys had her on, and I didn't know, and during the interview that Navy Joan was there. So the granddaughter was actually, she wasn't in the studio, but she was, she was at our place in DC, and London told me that Navy Joan. So she told her. She knows who her father is, and she knows who her grandfather is.
That's so
and
sad.
so,
Yeah, she
and so
Skypes with him.
on the way down,
Hunter, yeah.
because so where my studios are at the Real America's Voice place down in DC, they're very close to the White House. It's just in that vicinity. And so they said, oh, where are we going? And they mentioned this in the car, and London just says, oh, it's down by the White House. And then Navy Jones says, oh, that's where Grandpa lives, right? Are we going to go see him? And it's like, what do you say? And so I would even argue a step further and say it is not Joe Biden who demands that they don't recognize the granddaughter. As gone as Joe Biden is, I just don't see him doing that. But you know who would? The wicked stepmother. The wicked stepmother.
Who brings his youngest child to the carrying in of the Christmas tree, right? The
remember,
grandchildren she's willing to acknowledge, but Navy, no.
Right, and remember, she's not Hunter Biden's mother. She is not the grandmother of Navy Joan. And I think this is all about spiting Hunter. It's all about the spite that they have. And I can't imagine, for all the terrible things that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden have done, for all the things they claim that Trump has done, can you think of anything worse than refusing to acknowledge your own flesh and blood?
No, I mean, didn't Trump,
and knowing that she knows
Trump
that.
Trump had a child out of wedlock, right? Didn't he?
Trump?
No.
He didn't? No.
There was an allegation that he
There was an
had, and
ad-lib.
there was like a hypothetical doorman,
married-
whatever.
he married-
There's been
all of
there's been a lot of claims that may have happened.
Because I know in my family
but not out of wedlock. No.
We've certainly had children out of wedlock in my family. Like that's full disclosure in my extended family.
No,
You probably
five-
acknowledge them and don't
there's
only tell
never
people in
there's
magazine
never a
about them.
question of not acknowledging them. It's like, oh look, we have discovered that you exist. Come be in the family now. You know, that's what you do. And I think that's relatable to a lot of Americans too.
And she's
'cause,
6
like, a
now.
ton of
She's
Americans
6 years
have that,
old. She's not like
you know?
2.
But like a ton of I think I got confused with something else, but a ton of Americans have children and they don't have, you know, outside of marriage. That's true for a lot of families. And a lot of families say, oh, now we're going to bring you into the family. And to see the president behave so recklessly and so disingenuously with real family, with blood family like that is disgusting.
When you say president, of course, you mean Jill Biden.
Yeah, both of them.
So Joshua, walk me through that. What is it about the left that's so enamored with power that they'd be willing to do something so horribly and actually evil as that?
You never heard anything like that before, have you? Yes. So the Jill Biden narrative that we're describing right now, it almost sounds like something from the Bible.
Wow.
It is that archetypal, that ancient even. Something that is a fun exercise is to get lost on Wikipedia about lesser known wars, lesser known time periods, and you see things happen where this one person stole something from someone else, and then their family was massacred, and then that blew up into something, and it always comes down to two people having a problem with each other. Even something like the Bolshevik Revolution, it goes to the fact that Vladimir Lenin's older brother was captured and executed by the White Army.
Yeah.
And it's always down to two people, every one of these conflicts, be they communist revolutions or be they in the modern day. It's always one person. It sounds like in this case, it might be the hostility or the envy, the jealousy that Jill had for Michelle.
People say that the Iraq War was because George Bush's father, George Bush Jr.'s father, had an assassination attempt from Saddam Hussein.
Well, he said that at the time. Do you remember George Bush said, "Look what they tried to do to my daddy." He said it.
Yeah, and you can't discount
I remember
that.
that distinctly.
Putin had an older brother who died during the siege of Leningrad. So when he talks about, oh, we're going to Ukraine to denazify it, I think there's a tendency in the West to kind of put that in sort of like the anti-fascist narrative that we have, and oh, everyone I don't like is a Nazi, and like, oh, he's just claiming moral spirit. But no, I think that actually means something personal to him. Like, they killed my brother, and now I'm worried about them taking. And you could debate about whether or not it's true. Certainly for the Azov Battalion, it is. And they've got me on list after list after list. So Nazis are going after a Polish guy. You know how it is, and we certainly do. But I think to him, to your point, it actually means something personal.
Yes, and it usually is. If we look at each of these stories that we cover in the book on humans, there's always individuals who either say, "I will be the winner who takes all, no matter what," and they always push it so far. And it's the one on the left who pushes it farther than anyone else who's willing to push it is always the one who has power. Joseph Stalin, he obliterated all competition. Mao Zedong obliterated all competition during the Cultural Revolution. Anyone who is a threat, and then it's the people who stand as their righteous foil, who always are the ones with the father's heart, who say, "Dad's home, not while Dad's here." That's the spirit of Francisco Franco. That's the spirit of George Washington. That is, even to an extent, that's the Pinochet versus Allende.
Well, and when they talk about like, oh, they want to get rid of Joe Biden, I'm like, well, this is the same thing that leftists always do. It's they always have to get rid of the previous generation of leftists and say, you're not revolutionary enough, you're against us. So it's the Bolsheviks that take out the Mensheviks. This is why you have the February Revolution and then the October Revolution, because Lenin says, no, this isn't going far enough. This is why you have the Reign of Terror, because Robespierre and the Jacobin Club says, nope, it's not going far enough, fast enough. Stalin, of course, takes out all of his opposition, rises to power. Then, for anyone who's even seen it's a comedy, but Death of Stalin is a pretty good. So you have Beria versus Khrushchev and a few others.
We're seeing it right now with Pride,
and
though.
we're seeing. Even in Pride, what do you mean?
We're seeing it with Pride. So I don't know if you guys were tracking Pride over the weekend. We had a lot of
people
out.
I spent my weekend just watching those Pride
Toronto
videos.
and San Francisco and Seattle and whatever else. But
we had reporters out. Libby had reporters
out. Yeah, which was really cool. I loved that. But anyway, what kept happening was
Not the content, you mean the coverage.
I really like these reporters.
I'm trying to help you, Libby. I'm trying to help you out here.
Beth Beisch, they were out there doing great work, and I loved watching them be in their element.
Do we have like
and
hazard
do their
pay or
good
something
work.
for them when they go do that?
Why are you bringing that up?
I was just saying, like some of this footage is like,
They need therapy.
yeah, it's right. Like, do we have an employee wellness program?
Okay, wait,
Oh
hold
my
on, hold on.
goodness.
Libby needs
We
to
have health insurance.
Libby needs to explain what these events were.
Yeah.
So there were these pride events in Toronto and Seattle, New York, San Francisco, all over the place, Washington, wherever else. But the what was going on, and you had people out in New York, which was fascinating, covering.
Alad.
Yeah, Alad was out.
And I'll shout out to Tenet Media, Taylor Hansen.
Taylor was great too.
He had
Taylor's
one of the
videos
worst videos.
It was so disgusting.
I'm gonna say it was two men engaging in an adult activity involving the mouth and the lower portion in public
with
front of
urine,
children.
with
in
urine,
front of children
with urine.
and the police said, "You choose your battles."
Right. And Katie Davis-Court did this great sort of Megan Rapinoe confrontation where she was
yeah, that
like,
was
Megan, why do you support, men and women's sports? What's the deal? And Megan didn't have anything to say, but that went super viral. That was cool. But what was fascinating was that in Pride, you had counter protesters of, anti-Israel demonstrations.
Oh,
so you had, they kept doing was they kept shutting down Pride to have this further leftist demonstration, and they were saying like no pride during genocide, and all of this kind of stuff. And they were saying like
Identity for Palestine.
Identity for Palestine. They were saying, and they were also in Toronto, and this is something Beth Beisch got, which was really fascinating. You had the pride protest, the counter pride protesters complaining about the sponsors of the pride parade, saying that the sponsors of the pride parade were a big problem. And I thought that means,
Go on.
right? And that means now that pride is the establishment. Pride is the man.
Of course it is.
And it's being attacked by the further left.
Look, NASA
So
had
Pride
a
is
float
gonna
in
get-
San Francisco Pride. Like,
Sure.
it's
The
establishment.
FBI
Sure.
is marching in
But
pride
But
parades.
what's fascinating is the far left now realizes that pride is the establishment, and they are seeking to take down the thing that facilitated their own ability to pee on each other and give blowjobs and
Joshua, have you ever seen a snake eat its own tail?
Family friendly, Libby.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't use any curse
As
words.
of this weekend, it has a new meaning.
Yeah. Oh man.
So,
dude.
I'll explain because we always ask people not to swear.
Oh.
And we always ask people not to swear. And so the story was several years ago when we first started the show, I used a phrase that I thought was PG-13 and probably fine.
What was it? Say it.
I'm not going to, but I will describe it. It is a group of men all standing in a big circle, patting each other on the back. It's a bunch
The
of
Republican Party.
It's a bunch of jerks standing in a circle, all congratulating each other. And when I said it in the simplest terms, we got a bunch of emails from people who were laughing. They were like, it's funny, I just want to let you know, but my children are asking me what that meant, and I don't know what to tell them. And I was like, we'll try to keep things more family friendly when we do the show because people watch us on their TV and their kids are in the room or in their car or whatever. So now I just say, it's a circle of jerks all patting each other on the back.
Yes.
That's
Now
like when I took my son on the subway when he was about 7 years old, and it was a subway advertisement takeover for a dating app, and every sign on the subway said D2F. And my son goes, Mom, what's D2F? And I was like, oh dear God.
Can I respond to what Libby just said though? Because about the fact that the police were there. So that you have
In San Francisco,
that you have
yeah.
police officers viewing these acts, and this I believe in Taylor's video as well. He films the children, he films the act of the circle of jerks, and he then films the police officers watching the children in proximity to the acts. And I remember, so we were talking about Unhumans, and I was tweeting about it. People were like, oh, blah, 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 you're doing this book. They said, why are you doing a book about a communist revolution? Because we've got all these guns in America, and that'll never happen. And then I said, oh, really? Well, what if the new communists said it was all in the name of tolerance and diversity, and half the people in the country just went along with it, and the police said we're not allowed to act because that would be intolerant? Because that's what's going on right now.
That's what happened in San Francisco.
I have it on video.
That's what Taylor and Savannah saw. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, like, there's a lot of conservatives that are like, will the conservatives stop sharing the stuff to own the libs? We don't need to see it. You do need to see it. Sorry. The reason parents don't know the stuff is in their schools, the reason people don't know this is happening in public on their streets is because of that mentality of don't let anybody know because I don't want to see it. Well, unfortunately, the world is not fair. It's disgusting. It's brutal. There are people who go out there every single day and they face real combat and they see people getting their legs blown off. And then people are like, I don't want to watch that stuff. Well, then, the people who are on the front line see 100 times worse than what you're going to see at home.
That's why they hide the Ukraine footage.
And absolutely. And those videos they've posted where the Ukrainians are laughing and gloating when they drop a grenade on a Russian soldier. Dude, that is disgusting, okay? But war is bad. Trump was right. I want the dying to stop. The issue I see is when you refuse to acknowledge what they're doing on the streets and the police refuse to actually enforce the law, I want you to ask yourself what you are setting up at home for the brave men and women in uniform to come home to, because you don't want to see it. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to be at the meetings dealing with it. I don't want to see that stuff. Don't post it in front of me. Okay, when that dude comes back from overseas after, Biden claimed no one died.
Right.
What a disgusting statement.
And 3 people died in January in Jordan.
And now some man, some woman, they come home with their best friend in a casket, and they come back to the streets of their hometown and they see that depravity because you didn't want to deal with it. Man, that's too brutal. The least we can do at home is inform people, be active, and say, we're going to make sure we keep the house clean for when the brave men and women come home from the real duty.
But do you really think that and this is what I always push back on people and saying, like, do you really think that this isn't a form of communism? Do you really think that cultural Marxism doesn't exist and all Marxism is just economic? No, it's very clear that after the fall of the Soviet Union, they were like, all right, the whole economic class thing, like, it's not working. The free market is just working too well. Let's turn this to ethnicity. Let's turn this to gender. Let's turn it to religion. Let's turn it to race. Then Occupy kicks off and they're like, all right, we really need to turn on the race stuff around here because we're getting totally slaughtered. Everyone out there is talking about the banks. Everyone politically slaughtered. Everyone out there is talking about the banks. Everyone is talking about their wealth inequality. And this, by the way, is when you actually get people who rise up in real communist uprising, is when wealth inequality gets too bad. This is how you get Venezuela going from one of the richest countries in the hemisphere per capita to what it is now. This is how you get that. And time again throughout history, I don't care if it's France, I don't care if it's Russia, I don't care if it's Spain, I don't care if it's China, anywhere around the world, any place, anytime, this is what happens because this is what they do. This is what they always do. And just because they've changed it to the phraseology of tolerance or diversity or import millions of people, we're gonna do that, and it's gonna be great because you're just cogs in a machine, and all cultures are equal and everyone's equal. No, it's.
But do you think Americans are well versed enough in history to be able to identify patterns like that?
I think someone should write a book that would potentially
realize
help.
what I was setting up there.
Yes,
their background.
We're calling out. We are calling out the cultural Marxist lens of reality, which is the oppressor versus oppressed. And I think the San Francisco scenario demonstrates that, where the police view themselves as the role of the oppressor.
So true.
White cops with guns.
Yes.
Oh, okay, obviously I'm the oppressor to these people, so I have to back TF away because what I am viewing is not perverted acts in front of children. What I'm viewing is
Expressions of love.
yes,
An oppressed,
of the
marginalized group.
Yes, an oppressed, marginalized group. Love is love. Is what I'm witnessing.
They were
right now.
spanking each other's naked bottom.
Love is love.
Yes, and so the idea that communism is a thing of the past, no, it's a thing of the present. But red has many shades, and this thing is a chameleon. In any way that this movement of anti-civilization, I have a physicist friend who calls it all of it. He calls it entropy, civilizational, social entropy.
Yes.
And in the book we call it we call these forces that which accelerates the end of everything. And if we understand that that is the intended purpose of the oppressor versus oppressed worldview, that lens, then anything they can do to get power to destroy everything. There's a verse in the Bible where Jesus says that the enemy comes only to steal and kill and destroy. That is the force of unhumanity in the world. And we were having a conversation with Charlie Kirk a few weeks ago.
That was a great. When does that release? Because that was a terrific interview. I watched that live.
It should be coming out this week. I think he has it on the member section, but I've been like, Charlie, put it out this week.
That was a terrific. That
you
was
were in the room. When
I
we
was
did
in the
it,
room, yeah, because I got cleared out of Secret Service and I missed my war room hit, and I was like, oh, I'm going to check this out. But that more than made up for it. It was fascinating.
What we talk about, and I'll read it and shout out to the great Mystery Grove, who says the quote, and so much of this unlocks what we're talking about is that, you know, they say, well, define communism, right? And define communism.
And they're expecting macroeconomic theories,
yeah,
models,
these theories, etc. And there's like those MAGA communist guys who are running around now saying, "You won't debate us." You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it's very simple. He goes, communism is when ugly, deformed freaks make it illegal to be normal and then rob and or kill all successful people out of petty resentment and cruelty. The ideology is all just window dressing. So from this perspective, communists are not even communist because it's not about equality and justice and equity. It's about hating people who, for lack of a better term, can build things. People who are able to go out and be successful and accomplished and actually do something in the real world. Because the natural world, by the way, as Joshua was saying, tends toward entropy, tends toward disillusion, tends toward warfare, tends toward things decaying. Civilization is not, the 4th of July is coming up, right? Well, when the Declaration was written, they didn't know that the United States was about to happen. It wasn't presumptive. In fact, it was presumptive that they would be squashed and killed and destroyed as a military coup, and they would be a footnote to the British Empire. And who knows what would have come after that. And we would have been taught that George Washington was a petty rebel and a tyrant, and he
failed
military coup against the British crown and was slaughtered and strung up for having done so. When Ben Franklin says his line about hang together or hang separately, he meant that quite literally. And by the way, most of the signers of the Declaration did face such ends. We think of the revolution as this like, it was just this, salon and a bunch of political debates. Like, no, it was an actual war fought on ground not far from where we're sitting right now.
The Declaration of Independence was signed 1 year and 1 month after the war already began. That's an important fact, too. The founding fathers were in the midst of a war, and for a year we're debating how to deal with it, petitioning the crown in Parliament saying, like, stop shooting at us.
Yeah, July 2nd, 1775, the Olive Branch petition from the Continental Congress, basically sidestepping Parliament, saying, it's the British Parliament. It's them who's doing all of this. They're the ones who are doing all the taxes, the intolerable acts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Can you be a real G? Can you be a real G, Mr. George? And can you solve this problem for us? And so if you read that petition, it's just only like three pages. It's useful because, again, most Americans don't know any history, much less our own history. And if you ask anyone on the street, this would be a fun street exercise. What was the Olive Branch petition? Just ask, what was the Olive Branch petition?
Oh, come on.
Well, that's a bit esoteric, but specific.
Yeah, they're
but,
not going to get that.
I hear a lot of people say stuff like, founding fathers would be stacking bodies by... No, they wouldn't. They resisted war every step. They did not want it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, they were trying desperately. And then how did the war actually begin? They seized the weapons, intolerable acts. They marched from Boston to Lexington, Concord, and then just some...
Which was a military arsenal.
Right. And then militiamen... We don't know who opened fire first, but it was not an organized battle where the founding fathers were like, petition our battalion here at Lexington and stand your guard. No, it was like farmers being like, you ain't taking my guns.
Right.
And that's what started.
And so when the Declaration is signed, all of Boston is already under martial law, right, at that point. So Boston is completely under martial law. The British ships have come in the harbor. They're impressing people. This is, by the way, where the history of the Article 3 of the Bill of Rights comes in, quartering soldiers, because that was something the British were actually doing in Boston, which, by the way, they later do to New York City, they later do to Philadelphia, they later do across the North. Because, by the way, the Continental Army didn't do so well in the early stages. Washington loses a ton of wars. They actually do better in the Southern campaign prior to the North, really getting, Washington Crossing, et cetera, after Valley Forge. But the idea is that people seem to think that it was just some sort of like, oh, they wrote this thing, and then the British were like, oh, and then we just went for it. No, it was this horrific, terrible act, and it was horrible if you were going through it. And at one point, they're not just fighting the British, they're fighting other Americans who are loyal. It's in many ways a civil war because these were British on British on British.
And there was a Declaration of Independence, which I'm sure you're familiar with, right?
Yes. So it was when the British showed up in New York City, there was the offer to go back against your word, say, okay, I say no to the Declaration of Independence. And two of the signers of the Declaration of Independence said, okay, I'll sign an oath of loyalty to the king.
Right. Loyalists signed a declaration stating, "We are loyal to the crown. We are British subjects. We're good." It's crazy how that people don't know that. It's Always Sunny made a joke about it where they're doing this historical gag reel where Dennis is like, "We don't want to go to war, we'll lose." So they make a Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia. And it's like, well, that was a thing. And people also don't realize Quebec was a colony of the crown as well that rejected the independence. So when people are like the 13 original colonies, there were more than that.
Yeah, Aaron Burr fought up there.
Yeah, but they just said, "We don't want to be involved in your revolution." So we're like, okay. And then the founding fathers were concerned. There's actually a fascinating thing about Thomas Jefferson. He wanted to include a grievance in the Declaration about how the crown brought slaves to America and then was using them to levy war against colonists.
Right.
But they had to remove it because I believe it was South Carolina
yes.
and Georgia would not have joined the fight for independence if they outright said, "We don't like slavery."
Well, so this later comes up, and we actually talk about the issue of slavery as pertains to Haiti in the book, which then becomes a driver for the Civil War. And as we're here, and I think people know where we are in Civil War area, a lot of this territory, the borders here, the state of West Virginia, was created by the Civil War. That people don't, they say, "Oh, well, we're terrified of freeing the slaves because we're afraid of what might happen." Joshua, what happened in Haiti when the slaves were freed?
Yes, so an interesting chain of events happened. So,
Not long after the Revolutionary War that we're talking about.
yes, so following in the immediate aftermath of the French Revolution, what happens in Haiti is revolutionary sentiment seems to be exported into the Francophone world.
Like 1801.
Yes, and so there are biracial Haitian/French people who were disenfranchised, did not have civil rights. Well, the French. The new French Empire said, "Okay, you can have Estates General, I believe, said, okay, you can have some civil rights now, as you can vote, you can be a real French colonist now." And then they began to roll back the slavery system in Haiti, and people started to get freed. This is still under French colonial rule, but it wasn't happening fast enough. This slow walking of civil rights revolution in Haiti, and
You're starting to get a pattern now.
yes,
Yeah.
And so there are slaves, ex-slaves, free blacks in Haiti who are fomenting. They are organizing one another, usually around using voodoo rituals as a sort of coherence mechanism to organize around a supernatural source of envy and hate, and then they unleash themselves. And there's the famous Haitian slave revolt, and that results in the mass slaughtering of white men, women, and children in Haiti. And then one of the revolutionaries declares himself emperor. And what's one of the very first things that he does is he sends all the free blacks back into slavery.
Wow.
To work on their work. And it happens twice.
We've got to, before we go to Super Chats, I do want to jump into at least one last segment because Jack Posobiec has been bringing it up quite a bit, but this is a reference to the skate park. I'm going to start by giving you the gist of the story.
For the record, Tim brought it up first.
What do you mean, on the show?
Prior to the show.
Well, yeah, no, but so here's the gist of the story. There is an event happening in Martinsburg, West Virginia, where we own property and are setting up several businesses. They have even skated this jam, or many people have even skated in front of my building on my street, the street where my building resides. So I offered $20,000 in prizes to this event, and they're basically a bunch of leftists. They're very woke. They insulted me rather intently and then physically threatened me, saying that if I showed up, I'd be physically removed. So I spent $1 million and bought the land out from under them, and that's in my skate park now. That's the gist of the story. It's gone viral. There's 2 million views. The story is substantially more nuanced than that, but that's the general idea. And this actually happened a year ago.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned it on the show one time when I was on.
Yeah, it was a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's been rather uneventful. However, someone made a post on X, which got 2 million views, several thousand retweets and quotes. It's been picked up by a bunch of different YouTubers. Then Jack started making references to it, and people began asking, what's Jack's problem with Tim's skate park? Well, the general idea is, if this is what you'd like to believe, that woke people threatened physical violence against me on land they did not own. So I found the owner, and I bought the land for $1 million, and now they're on my skate park.
Did you kick them out of your skate park?
No.
See, so what's their problem?
The real reason why I thought this would be interesting to bring up in the context of, your book on humans.
What's their stupid problem?
Right, this is the point.
Yeah.
The reason why I did think this would be interesting to actually talk about is the question of, here's the real story. We bought property Timcast, me personally, I bought property in Martinsburg, West Virginia. I love the place. There's really great restaurants in there. Bricks 27, one of the best restaurants and the best filet mignon I've ever had. No joke. In Martinsburg. A lot of great people. And we were looking for land to build a small skate park. We had been looking at a small lot where we could build a plaza. We had been looking at large commercial properties. Hey, where they happen to have a DIY skate park already. When I got asked about this skate contest, which is on land not owned by anybody. It was owned by somebody, but they didn't live there. The person who owned it died. The kids inherited it. They didn't know what it was, and they didn't care.
So undeveloped.
It used to be a lumber yard, and the buildings are since stripped. But there's 4.5 acres of concrete, essentially 4.5 acres of concrete, which is, as you know, anybody who's laid concrete to that degree, we're talking millions of dollars worth of foundation.
But you might even have a claim that it was abandoned.
Arguably.
Yeah.
But so we had been trying to figure, we actually reached out to the owner, but it was the wrong information. So we actually had our agent go to the house. The address was wrong because it had been derelict. And why did we want that land? Well, the skaters that are there only use a small portion of it, but the city has an agreement with them that they're allowed to skate there, which basically clears the way for us to build a skate park because the city already has precedent that skateboarding is allowed here. So I offered up, rather randomly, because they don't own the property, and often they skate in the street, 20 grand. And the entire skateboard industry, like all these pros are hitting me up and they're like, this is the coolest thing ever. $20,000 to a local skate jam is unheard of. And I'm like, no strings, we're just gonna do it. They began to insult me, call me names, total political attack, rejecting the money. And I said, okay, we're gonna cancel it. We had already been looking to buy property in the space as it was. And so one day, and this is like a week later, we were in Martinsburg on this derelict lot covered in dog crap. And I was like, we could buy it, concrete it out, make it a skate hangout plaza. When some dude comes up threatening us, saying he's the sheriff of the park and we're not welcome there, another car pulls up, a guy runs up, starts screaming in our face. Some lady who lives nearby is freaking out, saying she's going to call the cops. I have no idea what's going on.
So somebody put the word out that you were there.
Yeah, and but we're there all the time. This land that we bought is 2 blocks from where Cass Brew Coffee is, where our coffee shop is being built. And so our agent is there. We're trying to buy land, and now this guy's screaming in our faces and filming us, and this other guy's screaming, and we're like, what is wrong with these people? I don't know them. I never said anything to them. All I did was offer to give them 20 grand. Afterwards, when they're freaking out, I offered $500,000 for a public park, and they told me to shove off. They're now soliciting public funds in the city to build a park after having rejected me saying I was going to build a park anyway. I think it's interesting because the left doesn't care. They do not care. When you look at these threads, that I was offering $520,000, no strings attached, for a public space for the community. That's it. All they care about is that it was me, and I'm on the wrong side of their politics. The city has since, my understanding, allocated $30,000 towards engineering drawings for this group, having already rejected non-public funds from me. So think about this.
That's so rude to the taxpayers.
They want the taxpayers.
It's not like it's a really rich area or anything.
No, they want the taxpayers to pay the bill for their skate park that I offered to build.
That's
exactly what the book is about.
Trash.
This is exactly you're just. Yeah, this should be the next chapter.
Giving you the basics of this story.
Yes.
I have this tweet here I can show you real quick. They basically said they didn't want to be associated with my money. They have no reason. They don't take my money, but it was kind of weird that I have major industry pros being like, I will take your money. Like, are you crazy? Mm-hmm. Pro skateboarders famously don't make 6 figures. The majority of pro skateboarders are making 10, 20,000 a year off skateboarding, and they're destitute, and the industry is failing.
Wait, look at this. It says, to avoid possible negative attention that would be associated with Tim Pool. They're the ones creating the negative attention.
Right.
Yeah.
This is what they always
This is what they always
Right.
do.
They always do this. They create this language.
Get close to the mic.
You gotta get closer.
There you go.
There was one post, and this was brought up by the Quartering, where they basically said Tim Pool wouldn't let LGBTQ people skate there or something like this.
What?
Never happened. I talked to one of the guys on the phone, and I said, look, man, I'm going to give $500,000 to building a public park. And they were like, well, we don't want it. We don't want to be involved. We're doing our thing. And I said, I will build a $500,000 public park on this property away from your DIY, and you guys keep the DIY and do your own thing, and I'll do my thing over here. And they said no.
But isn't it your land?
It is, and I could do it if I want. But the point is, for them to come out online and I think the main issue here is this. By all means, if you want to believe the narrative is F with Tim Pool and he will buy your land out from under you, get woke, go broke.
Which
Fine.
is hilarious.
I know there's a bunch of people being like, Tim's based. Wow, it's hilarious. The woke people tried to kick him out, so he bought the land, and now they can't. He unbanned himself.
Yeah, I love it.
Sure, I guess.
That story. But also, like, they clearly don't pay attention to what it is that you're doing professionally otherwise, because you're a very open-minded person.
But this is the important thing. Like, yeah, I get that. The thing at display here is, if you support me at timcast.com, I will buy out more woke industry, and I will just. I'm kidding.
Base.
We will, but there's no animosity. I told the guys, I was like, guys, I don't know you. I'm not mad at you. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why you're mad. I'm trying to give you guys money so you can keep skating, so we can have more skateboarding because we need more people to skate. Let's build stuff. And they were like, no, F you. The issue here that I think is interesting is they don't want skateboarding. They don't want skateboarding to succeed. They want to own. They want to have power. They want to control the area. And, I don't know if I was going to bring this up, but when you were talking about the left's motives and things like this, I was like, does this not exemplify the lies and manipulation? And I think that's actually, I suppose, like the great benefit to everything that's coming out from this story. And the story going viral again is Tim Pool offers $520,000, no strings attached, to local community for a public park. And they said, because you are not a communist, get the F out.
This is like Trump with the ice skating rink up in New York in Central Park all those years ago. It's almost exactly like that. Although New York, except at the time, because Trump wasn't a very bad, naughty person yet.
They were excited. They were great.
Well, Joshua, you were going to say before,
saved it.
And we were kind of cut you off, but explain. This is what they always do.
Yes. So you're right. And think about, at least when I was growing up, what were skaters? Masculine, troublemaking boys, many of them white. And so what we have is future oppressors, future oppressors congregating in one place. We can't have future oppressors congregating in one place doing fun things.
When I was growing up, skateboarders were completely mixed, and it was a point of like, it was actually brought up by a lot of pros. They're like, how cool is it that we all skate together and people are of all different races, but the only thing that matters is the tricks. When you go out and you skate, you get that trick. Nobody cares about your race. Nobody cares about how much money you've got. It's just, we're here to have fun, have a good time. There was actually a viral video where an Israeli and Palestinian skateboarder met in America and were skating together and laughing and like skating, and they didn't realize they had just met. And they were like, look at this, man. Skating brings people together. Now, what I find funny about this is that these people have become completely exclusionary gatekeepers. You must adhere to their ideology or else you are not welcome. And so this actually stems from a bigger issue too. We did this big jam at Freedom Plaza in DC. I was skating there with my girlfriend, minding my own business, and they started posting pictures of me and insulting me, being like, don't come, Tim Pool's here, blah, blah, whatever. They started going on forums, lying, saying I wasn't actually able to skate, I was posing, and weird lies. Just, this is another big thing they do.
Post videos all the time.
Well, I mean, I started increasing the videos I post because I'm actually really good at skateboarding, and they were lying, claiming I didn't know how to skate.
But there's like old videos of you.
Oh, for sure. I've been skating since I was 13.
Yeah.
But the issue is they have no skills. They have nothing to offer but communism and their weird woke cult. And they cannot lose out that influence.
Do I need to read the quote again?
Read the quote.
I'll read the quote again. Here you go. I should have this memorized by now. Communism is when ugly, deformed freaks make it illegal to be normal and then rob and or kill all successful people out of petty resentment and cruelty. The ideology is all just window dressing.
So I want to show this image too real quick. This is from their Instagram. This is my building. Like, I own this building. We are building a coffee shop and a club here, and we're going to sell. It's going to be a small skate shop.
You think you just own land, man? Like just like own land? It's the Indians' land. Oh, I mean,
there was
oh my God.
Someone posted the funny meme from Futurama where he's like, "Get off my property," and the hippie goes to it's Professor Farnsworth from Futurama, and he's like, "You can't like own property, man," and he goes, "I can, because I'm not a penniless hippie."
Let's go. Let's go.
Here's the thing. These people set up in the streets in front of my building to skate. I got no beef. I say nothing. I want to put money in the community. They attack me online. They attack me relentlessly, and they make it a point of rallying to reject this. Well, I tell you what, the local community in reality loves this. They're grateful that we're putting money into skateboarding. And I question and I have to deal with now the city of Martinsburg because we want to build the skate park. There's going to be a problem that they've made for themselves. They are trying to raise $400,000 for a public park. I already offered $500,000. I can't imagine how the city is going to rectify this. We are going to pay this. So the city's not paying the 400. They're trying to raise that. But the city, I believe, did pay $30K. Why is the city paying for something I offered to pay? Because they reject it. Because they're trying to maintain political control in the area, and I never asked for anything to do it. So what I see here is, and it's fairly obvious to everybody. First thing, money talks, BS walks. The people who skate in the area are thankful that we're building, expanding, launching companies, and we pay our skate team salaries. Unheard of in the skate industry. And these people are losing out because get what go broke. And this is a good example of why you don't want to be on the side of people who want to be drug-addicted losers who live in the streets. If you want to live a good life, if you want to be a pro skateboarder, if you want to be successful, if you want to make money doing what you love, it is not with them because they're burning it down intentionally.
They're not having any fun either.
It's weird. They're not having any fun. I have not said anything to them in a year. They rejected the money. I said, okay. And that was it. And then a year later, they make these posts and begin the attacks again. I've said nothing to them. I've not gone and we've done nothing. We've not put up a fence at the DIY. We've not put up a statue of me or flags or anything. And I got people,
But you are going to put up a statue,
And you just
right?
let them play and hang out on your land.
Well, my new rule, I said I have a rule for my skate park in Martinsburg, no pedophiles. Only rule.
So no leftist valid.
Well, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
But they're getting real mad.
I don't
Anyway,
like that. It's always funny
I-
how when you say no pedos, people say that's anti-LGBTQIA.
that's right. It's weird, right? I do have a rule, though.
apparently.
I have a rule. You can't ban people from land you don't own. You couldn't do it before I owned it, and you especially can't do it now that I own it. So if people want to go and skate on a piece of property, they assume the responsibility and liability for themselves and whatever it is you had prearranged, and you cannot kick people out of land you don't own. These are the people claiming. One person accused me of being Israel. They were like, he's pulling in Israel. I'm like, kind of think you are. It's not your land. It never was. And you kicked people off of it for no reason. So that's your argument. But anyway, that was fun. We'll go to Super Chats now if you haven't already.
If we have one quick second, because
Let's get it.
I've got something here that was a gift for Tim Pool.
Oh, yeah, your
and we were just talking, by the way, about
Is it a cake?
stuff for children.
Ah.
And Tim Pool recently did a huge favor to help out children's media in the United States, non-woke children's media, and specifically Brave Books.
Oh, I know what this is.
And specifically the Adventures with Mr. Kirk. I'm told, by the way, 11 episodes have already been filmed in the can, 9 more to go. And of course, they have the Iggy. So Iggy and Mr. Kirk, Iggy is the puppet. And since they created a whole puppet workshop, I talked to the guys over at Brave Books and I said, well, is there something we could do for Tim? And they said like, oh, well, does he like skateboards and firearms? We give him a side. No, guys. We had to get Tim something a little bit more special than that. So here's what we did. Got the box.
Oh, my
Is there a
goodness.
puppet in it?
Tim,
Is it a Tim puppet?
hold on. Put this over here for a second. I had them make for you.
Oh, my goodness.
Here we go.
Oh, my goodness. Look at that. That's amazing.
The Tim Pool with the headphones. I'll put that there for a second. The Tim Pool puppet. Can they see that, Serge? This is the Tim Pool puppet, and you.
He looks like Armenian.
You can. Yeah, he is actually. Yeah, and his land was taken too. And here we go. So now, whenever Tim is out for a day, you just bring the Tim Pool puppet in.
I do say that.
And when he wants to go to the skate park,
Oh, my goodness.
we've got his own skateboard, and of course it says
There's no nose on that board.
Brave. Of course it says bravebooks.com. So here, I don't know what the
Is
best.
that? Hold on. Let me see that skateboard. I think.
Here, can I put it over? Will that work? I want to tear things apart.
No, I can't get it.
Here, pass that to him.
Yo, we got some skateboarders here who will absolutely thrash with this board.
That is
Here,
wild.
Tim, I'm
And,
going to hand you this
there's
puppet of
also
yourself.
there's also like they even have.
gonna hand you this
Tim, it even
puppet
has
of
the
yourself.
chair. We're not going to put it all together right now.
Oh, my
Grabbed him by the
goodness.
The
neck.
chair is even there.
Tim, it has a chair.
Tim is strangling himself. I
can't breathe.
Right now.
That is wild.
All right, we're gonna use that for videos.
Bravebooks.com. the Timcast puppet and skateboard. I was I said, guys, you got to get Tim a puppet, and yes, it needs a skateboard.
I think the crew that we have here will be able to film on that board and do some legit tricks on it.
Are you serious?
No joke. One of the
That's
dudes
not
here,
just like a kid's, like you could actually ride that.
I mean, that board is very odd
Yeah.
and very weird, but you could do anything on
They
anything.
have a board
it's
covered in
made
like
for
carpet,
puppets,
though.
Tim.
That's like,
So one of the skaters in our crew, Special Mike Noggle, we call him Special Mike because he's so ridiculously good at skateboarding. Legit, we call him Special. He took an omnidirectional dolly, and he actually did a blunt to fakie on the quarter pipe. That is, he rode an omnidirectional dolly up the quarter pipe and stalled on the back wheels, and then jumped back in. Wow. Omnidirectional. He's spinning in circles as he's doing it. It's amazing. I can't imagine. They're gonna tear that place up with that little board. That'll be funny.
As long as people know, bravebooks.com, watchbrave.com, Iggy and Mr. Kirk coming soon. Completely non-woke, normal, regular, traditional, anti-communist vowels.
Super chat time. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button and subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us. The members only show is going to be based AF, and we'd love to see you there. You can, as members, join our Discord server, submit questions, and then actually call into the show to talk to us and our guests. It is good fun. And as members, you are supporting the work we do. And perhaps if you become a member, I might just buy out some woke business or the next time I go to a coffee shop and the person there is super woke and insults me, I'm just going to pull a Bruce Wayne and pull out my checkbook and be like, I'm buying this coffee. I'm kidding. But wouldn't that be great? If you support us, what we'll do is we'll make more media with it, and we'll continue our cultural endeavors, and we greatly appreciate your support. Here we go. James Eaton says, Civil War. That's not a quote from me, though, so you're not allowed to drink. It's only when I say it. I was reading someone else's quote. Alpha Turkey says, immune to using SEAL Team 6 to take out political rival. Dems projecting what they will do in the future if they control it all. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, they're openly calling for President Trump's assassination. They're calling for drone strikes on Mar-a-Lago. Look, they've gone full mask off. So if you want to go mask off, let's go mask off, because I'm more than happy. You guys know where to find me.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, why must you be a 1980s style evil villain? I remember that movie. Remember that movie where it was all the teenagers were at the ski club on a mountain they didn't own that they were trespassing on, and then some guy bought the mountain and said, I love what you guys are doing. Keep it up.
There's a lot of trouble up there on that mountain there.
It's
A lot
because the 80s
of
are your
kids don't
favorite
go up there
decade,
since
right?
Well, the
Well,
80s is clearly the best decade ever.
85.
Maybe you're just bringing the 80s back.
America has never recovered from the time at which Men at Work were the top charting band in this country. It has never gotten better than that. That was the end of it. That's it.
Sometimes that is better.
Nope. Like it was, what was it, like 1984?
Is that I Just Want My MTV?
No.
So MTV, I would just want my MTV would be the end of that era.
That's the end of that.
I'm talking about Down Under. You know, Land Down Under.
Yeah.
And Who Could It Be Now? And of course, Overkill. I mean, that song's a classic. After that, it was just, go watch the video for Overkill and that suit and those lights. And that was America back in the early 80s. And now what do we got going on? Huh?
What's funny is I'll sometimes tell my kids that we're going to listen to 80s music. And so I'll just put it on for a while. And because we'll try not to have TV or video on, especially on Sundays. And so we'll say, it's going to be 80s music. And we might be going to do something else later. We come back home, they say, Daddy, can we listen to 80s music? And I think it's funny because they have no conception of what the 80s are. Yeah. My older son understands he knows I was born in the 80s, but that to him that he doesn't understand culture, but he knows that 80s means something.
Yeah,
which I think is pretty cool.
Socks. I had fluorescent socks.
Excellent.
And we wore
based.
many different fluorescent socks at once so that you had stripes of fluorescent.
See, the problem
It
is
used to be a country.
The problem
We used
is
to be a real country.
for us is that my wife was born in the Soviet Union, so for her the 80s means something different. She's like, no,
All right.
no.
Let's read some more. Polly Pierre says, Ian, where are you? Ian is back tomorrow. He'll be here tomorrow.
Sad I missed Ian.
We're off
Wow,
Thursday and Friday.
Not good enough for you, Jack.
It's MAGA
I
month.
just miss Ian. I haven't seen him.
It's MAGA month, as you all know. Today's the first day of MAGA month.
Let's go.
And it's going to be based. We've got the 4th. I mean, talk about the best timing for the 4th of July. If the 4th of July was on a Wednesday, you're kind of in trouble because you can't just take Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off. No, it's 5 days.
Tough.
You can't do. But 4th of July on a Thursday, 4-day weekend.
4-day weekend, 96, baby. Let's go. Full 96.
There you go. And so we'll be off, and I'll be visiting family. But this means you basically get the 4th of July, fireworks. But then, of course, they're going to have celebrations on the 5th because now it's Friday. And then they're going to do it on Saturday, too, because you got to do it on
You got
Saturday.
the whole weekend.
You get 3 days.
I'm not going to say where, but I actually like going places on the 5th of July because if you find places that are open, they're usually completely dead.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It's really slow.
Let's go. Paul Tascalo says, notice who hasn't commented on the Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. Not a peep from any,
That was really good.
Okay, that's good.
not a peep from any of the living former presidents. I wonder why that is.
Gee, I wonder why.
Because they'd be in jail.
Old drone strike Obama.
Obama's like, we got too many kids. We got to blow them up. Too many of them.
What are those brown kids over there?
As president, I will blow up kids. That's what he did. All right. California Prepper says, hi, Tim. I love your videos and streams. I just started my own business and would love a shout out. I build custom meals ready to eat that actually taste good for half the price. My website is custommres.net. Thanks, Tim. Oh, that sounds interesting.
Cool business.
MREs.
Everybody,
PTSD, MREs.
These ones taste good, Jack. These ones taste good.
Actually, real MREs do taste good, but they're not good for you.
no. Everyone not in the service loves the novelty of an MRE.
That's true.
Yeah, you see? Because when we buy some, everyone's all excited, like, oh, I really want to try it. It's disgusting, but it's fun.
It's like astronaut food. People would pay five times the price for like a little. Oh, it's astronaut ice cream.
Dehydrated
Yeah.
ice cream, yeah.
Yeah, that's good, though, dehydrated ice cream. You know, it's like hard, and you bite it.
We used to get it when I went to Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. I used to always get it. I would still get it.
It's delicious. There's a, what is it, Black Dog Coffee? They've got a bunch of freeze-dried ice cream, and you put it in the coffee, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
They're very cool. Over in Shenandoah
Freeze-dried
Junction.
ice cream in the coffee?
Yeah.
Is it like a creamer?
No, it's like freeze-dried ice cream is almost like a hard marshmallow, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I've had it, but
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, coffee.
What
It sounds really
happens
good.
to it in the
Yeah.
coffee? Is it just like a sweetener?
We
You could dip it like a cookie, you know?
Good
it's
sauce.
awesome.
You
yeah.
dip it like a
Yeah.
I put raw eggs in my coffee now. Raw shout out
And peanut
to
butter?
Shout out to Ragnar. No, I've gotten rid of the peanut butter. It's now.
I do that now. I saw you do that. I thought, no way.
Just talked me into this.
Peanut powder,
It's
is that
really
what you
good.
did? Peanut butter or peanut powder?
I was doing straight peanut butter, then I was doing peanut powder, but
It's
now
delicious.
now it's all raw eggs.
How do you
is
get it
delicious.
to not curdle?
What?
How do you get the egg to not curdle in your coffee?
Whisk it. I
You
whisk it.
you like take that time to just really go for it.
It's not really that hard. Use a fork.
Well, it's actually not easy to get the eggs to not curdle when you're doing like carbonara or like putting it in ramen or something.
All right, let's go. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says Biden used a teleprompter for a 5-minute speech. WTF?
Didn't he? Wasn't there one where he
We're not
used one?
taking any
He
chances
used one
with
for a
this guy.
fundraiser the other day as well.
Yes.
He used one for a
Stelter's
fundraiser. You know, they're like he used a teleprompter at a fundraiser. This is like Barack Obama using the teleprompter at the kindergarten or for the kindergarten. For those who remember this, he actually did that once.
What?
And he used a teleprompter. The two.
Trump should not have used a prompter at the Libertarian Convention. He should have just roasted them.
He's so good when he's off prompter.
I know.
He's so good.
He would have won many more of them over if he just did a Trump speech to the Libertarians. But when he went off script and was like, keep getting 3% being losers or vote for me, that was actually good.
Joshua, you got to see your first live Trump speech recently.
Yes, it wasn't until it was like an hour long or hour and a half
Where
long
was it?
in Detroit at the Turning Point event. And about halfway through it, I realized he doesn't have a teleprompter. All of this is just pure sauce. There were 3 techniques that he used that I hadn't seen before. The first thing I noticed is he didn't use any filler words, any uhs or ums or pause or anything like that. Instead, what he would do is he would make a comment about the topic that was currently in discussion, almost like waiting for the thought to surface. You know, so he would talk about the shower heads, the communist shower heads, and the water, and he would talk about the weak water pressure, and he would say something like the water pressure. There's hardly any water pressure. People at that point might say, like that might be their verbatim. Instead, he would say, something like, I have this beautiful head of hair, best head of hair, gorgeous head of hair. It's the best. And then
Those are his filler words.
and so his filler words are hilarious commentary, easy to understand. I also noticed something else that he did was he would give characteristics to describe people. And that was
that's his thing.
that was the character.
Sleepy Joe.
He would show not tell, which is advanced like fiction writer tell. So he talked about this fellow from Mexico and had this beautiful blue suit. Was beautiful, so sophisticated, describing this character and who he was as a person via the symbolism of his perfectly tailored blue suit. He had it all together, and it was the perfectly tailored blue suit. Instead of saying, I even thought about asking
puts
him
you
about.
in the room.
Yeah.
Because he uses this imagery, and it was the negotiator on what NAFTA turned into.
Yeah.
And talking about how I'm going to get them to pay for the wall, and he goes back and forth. But the way he described this guy's suit, it just made you visualize sitting across the Resolute desk, looking at this Mexican negotiator in a beautiful tailored.
And it made
blue
him
suit.
into a three-dimensional character.
Oh, yeah.
That he,
Trump is actually telling you a story. He's not delivering perfectly calculated political speech points. And I find that really interesting. Yes. I've seen him speak a couple different times, but I actually loved him at the Libertarian Convention because I've never seen someone from a different political party go to another political party
It's like
and
the
ask
first
for
time
their
that
nomination,
happened.
which is hilarious. Sorry, Libertarians. And then also proceed to tout their accomplishments in the third person, which gives you that larger than life feel. Like I am occupying you, and also I am describing myself.
Let's read some more.
Enjoy your 3%.
Yeah, we got Quantum Strange Quark says Biden doesn't need a cognitive test anymore. The debate was the test that the entire world witnessed in real life. Indeed, it was. I like that meme. It said Biden doesn't need a cognitive test; his voters do.
Well, the real question is, should Trump agree to another debate? I don't think he should.
I agree.
Didn't he already agree to it?
No, but why do it?
At this,
Just
at,
what's
Like,
the
what's
point?
the point?
At this point, I agree because nothing can be gained after that failure of a debate. Let that ring in people's minds forever.
Right. It's now on them. Put the onus on them to try to find some reason to resurrect the reasons for voting for, which of course they're desperate to try to do. They're using the Supreme Court, they're using abortion, they're using Trump, they're using these specters of Trump's return to authoritarianism, et cetera, SEAL Team 6. That's why you see them going so feral right now.
Did you see those?
Oh yeah, the Trump coins.
No, I didn't see the coins. Are those Biden coins?
Well, there's a Biden one and a Trump one.
Okay.
One's got Biden in prison and Trump being sworn in, and one's got Biden being sworn in and Trump in prison.
Is this silver?
It's silver coated.
Silver coated, okay. Oh, so that's nothing.
Right. They're just funny little gag gifts that went viral online. It's like, which president do you want? And the funny thing is, the Biden in prison one is the one that sold the most.
Nice.
People wanted Trump winning and Biden in prison. And they did this thing where it's like a meter showing how much people were buying. And
That's what they do at the Iowa State Fair. And
Right,
stuff like that.
right.
Look, I do this all the time. So we were in D.C. over the weekend, took the kids down. So I mentioned before we went over, I took the family to go see Steve on his last weekend of freedom for a little while. By the way, Steve is just doing 4 months of show prep for his next episode, right? He's just doing extended show prep. And so we hung out in D.C. for a while and took them around to some of the tourist stuff. It's all Trump hats.
Oh, yeah.
Even in D.C. because because people think D.C.'s liberal, right? But the tourists are not, because, and this happened all through the Trump administration, the tourists to D.C. are predominantly people from middle America who want to see their capital because they love America and they love the institutions. Conservatives are naturally institutionalist. And this is one of the issues that Joshua and I have had in getting these books out, is to explain to people, no, the institutions are the problem currently. And we've had some success now. But I'm telling you, these kids, they show up from Covington. This is what Covington Catholic was, by the way.
Right.
With Nate Salmon, that it was Nick Salmon. That they were from Middle America and they had no idea what it was like in D.C. and they're all wearing MAGA hats because they all come and wear MAGA hats.
If you believe in
Let's
the country,
gotta read
you
some
go to
more
DC.
super chats. We got Jeff Bader says, pulling weeds with my 8 and 4-year-old. Tim, I really do appreciate keeping the language clean. Seriously, you do a great job. And that's why I tell people, this is not, what the thing is, I don't understand, is that there are people who come here and think this is like the NC-17 and they say graphic things and they swear a lot. And I'm like, yo, this is like a prime time news.
That's Joshua Affair, by the way. Totally, 100%, like all the time, man. Every other word.
The thing that really, really gets me, though, is that there are people who on Tucker Carlson would never call for violence, on their own shows would never call for violence. And we've had like 4 or 5 people come here and legit straight up call for violence. And I'm like, that's just straight up disrespectful. Why would you do that? Like, I've seen you on other programs. You never do this before. You come here and you just think you have like free reign to just say all this, the craziest things in the world. And it's just outright disrespectful and wrong. Very annoying. But that's one thing that really does get me. The swearing happens, you know what I mean? All right, let's grab this one. We got Calamari, the number one hater, says, Tim, remember everything the left claims we'll do is just what they do. Corporate media keeps repeating the lie that it's now illegal to use SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a rival because they're going to try to do it to Trump. Well, Biden would have to do it, but he just told us he won't be a dictator. All right. Ossery says, I'm a former active duty Marine. The restrictions we had on engaging in the 90s was insane. I can't imagine what's going on now with the troops around Israel. My youngest son is deployed in Jordan now. Crazy, man. All right. Rob Cortez says, fact check. Watch the original D-Day clip immediately after Joe Biden's speech. He was squatting because he was trying to put his speech documents on the ground. The viral video was edited. I did watch the full video, and I have heard numerous explanations. One is he was trying to put his documents on the ground. No, he was trying to sit down in the chair, but Jill whispered to him not to. He was thinking of sitting down, but decided not to. I'm like, dude, all of those are fine. Just fine. Okay? And there is a potentiality that he pooped his pants. That's all. I'm not saying I know he did. I don't know. Maybe, probably he didn't. Could it be 10%? 10% chance an 81-year-old man had an accident?
It's a little squirt.
Right? Like, okay, how about this? What if he was suffering from severe nerve pain and back pain and he was on the verge of collapse?
Hot day, he's out there, lock the knees, you know,
Yep.
It happens.
And he's getting lightheaded and he's starting to go down a little bit and then he recovers.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to make up? He was unable to sit down. He was unable to put papers on the ground. He pooped his pants, or he's suffering severe pain in his old age. I don't care which one you pick. The point is, any one of them is a fine option. He is too old. He is suffering, and he should not be where he is.
Well, you know what they say, vote blue no matter who.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yep. Well, too many conservatives say back the blue no matter who, and then they end up supporting a bunch of commies in places like Seattle. All right, everybody. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us. The members only call-in show, uncensored, will be coming up. This one's not so family friendly, and it's just about a minute. You can follow me on X at Timcast, and Instagram at Timcast. I just want to say, Jack, thank you for this amazing puppet of myself and the skateboard. We're going to have the crew. We'll make a video of him skating the skate park. We'll figure out how to do it. Maybe we'll do stop motion or a green screen or something. It'll be fun.
I've had that thing in my house for like a month now. my children are like, get rid of this thing.
It's staring at you while you're
don't
sleeping.
Want this. There is something, before we sign off, I do want to address something that Joshua and I have been dealing with from Amazon.com regarding the book. So for people who pre-ordered Unhumans, apparently we have broken the internet and we have broken Amazon. And so tomorrow was supposed to be the ship date for everyone for the book. However, people are suddenly getting emails now saying that my book isn't coming until the weekend, or my book isn't coming until next week. Other people saying my book is coming early. So we broke Amazon with the book. It's amazing. I have no idea how this happened, but it happened. I'm on the phone with like all my publishers, screaming all those words that Tim just said we shouldn't say on air here. But here's what I would say. If your book, for whatever reason, came in late, take a screenshot of your email. Email it to 1776@humanevents.com. And if you are someone who is in this particular bucket, what we are going to do is that myself and Joshua, he doesn't know about this, what we're going to be doing is a private members only, you're joining the members now, Q&A session for all of you that we're going to go through the book and take every single one of your questions for anyone who is affected by the Amazon servers blowing up. 1776@humanevents.com. Screenshot your email.
Very cool. Where can people find you?
You can find me in the pages of Media Matters, Right Wing Watch, Patriot Takes, Might It Touch, SPLC, ADL, because for some reason they can't stop talking about me.
I know they're obsessed. And what time's your show? Where can
We are 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. over at Human Events on Real America's Voice, and I may be covering down on a couple shifts for the War Room while Steve Bannon is on extended show prep.
Cool. It's been so fun having you here, Joshua. Where can people find you?
Well, in 90 or so different books, but not by name.
But tell us whose books then.
Yes. Well, this one. This is number 91. On
Even all his secrets.
He's too good. He's too good.
On Humans with, yes. So I'm at Joshua Lisec, Lisec, X, Twitter, just at Joshua Lisec. I like to talk about persuasion in public and literary persuasion and how to write hypnosis scripts in print.
Tell Tim how much you love Mary Sue's.
Oh, yes. This will put me on the Mary Sue affair, we call it. I wrote a 13 million view Twitter thread, now X thread, in December 2022, put me on Jack's map.
That's how I put you on my map too.
Yes, that's right.
How
I was
started talking.
I was analyzing how one of the mistakes that memoir authors that I work with make is they will marry to themselves, where they make themselves be perfect, and all they had to do was just realize that all the strength they needed in perfection was within them all along. That's a terrible story. This is what I tell my autobiography clients, particularly the politicians who think it's legit, that they really are in fact that perfect. And then I realized, wait a second, that's, yes, which by the way, I do not believe that there ever was a dog. I don't believe that there ever was a cricket.
This could be a whole other show. Just you telling us whose autobiographies are worth reading and who aren't, and whose are not.
Libby.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm the editor with the Post Millennial and Human Events, and you can check out all the great work we're doing there at thepostmillennial.com and humanevents.com, and you can find me at Libby Emmons on Twitter.
That's awesome.
Right on.
It's been super fun having you here. I think we should talk about why you got into hypnosis on the after show, but I know I'm just one party and it's a big room tonight. I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. I'm a writer for SCNR.com at Scanner News. Follow all of our work at Timcast News on the internet. If you want to follow me personally, I'm on Twitter at Hannah Claire B, and I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. Bye, Serge.
Peace out.
We'll see you guys all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.